What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Radiovania's DC Extended Universe in Review. That's the DCEU, the DCEU. My name is Zachratello, at Zachratello on Twitter and all the social medias, and sitting across from me in the flesh for the second time in this series, we got John motherfucking Swan Song Parker.
Yeah, we're batting 500 for the in-person pods recently.
Timing just seemed to work out. We're it's the eve of one of our good friends' bachelor party, so we're here doing the pre-show. We got sipping on some Bullet Barrel Strength bourbon, and we're here to talk about Wonder Woman. That's right. If you've been keeping up with the series, and shout out to everyone who has been, we got a really, really great response on the first couple of episodes. Surprise, surprise, Suicide Squad is our least viewed one of them so far, and I think it's just because no one wants to relive those memories.
Yeah, it's at some point it's just like sad to talk about, I think. Yeah. You know, it's like kicking a dead horse that's been decomposing for like years.
It's like a real sad kick.
It's like
yeah. But yeah, if you're unfamiliar, what we're doing is John and I are in our friendship and in the time of Radiovania, the DC universe has been a hotly debated, memed, love. It's a range of emotions, but it's been something that's been a constant throughout the show, is that these movies have conflicted us, you know, but we watched them, and now we're doing a retrospective, and we're going back and we're reviewing them with fresh eyes, rewatching them, taking notes, and then discussing how we feel now that some time has passed. And we're on week 4, and it's Wonder Woman time, baby. So if you want to listen to the other episodes, you can do so by going to radiovania.com or going wherever podcast services you use. Just search Radiovania, and you will find the DCEU series. This is going to be a good one, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. This is of the 4 that we've done, this is the movie that I rewatched the most. So asking me to rewatch this for the pod was not a task for me. I've seen this one the most too, so my notes are more like bullet pointy because I feel like I can dive into the scenes pretty easily. But yeah, I will be upfront. I really like this movie, and I'm excited to talk about it because I think the last time we talked about it was after we saw it. So,
Definitely.
So it's been 3 years since we chatted about it.
Yeah, and funny enough, almost 3 years to the day this movie came out. Wonder Woman, getting into the facts, June 2nd, 2017.
So yesterday
In 2017 was the 3-year anniversary.
That's what I watched.
It's kind of funny timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yes. So Wonder Woman came out June 2nd, 2017. It's a runtime of 2 hours and 21 minutes. Directed by Patty Jenkins. Do you have any? Have you seen any of her other like most known work?
I have not, much to my chagrin, because I do like her as a filmmaker. The only like factoid that I know is that she was supposed to direct Thor: The Dark World because she's friends with Natalie Portman, and then it didn't pan out, and it made Natalie Portman really miserable on that set. And
it made her quit Marvel.
A lot of people point that to her leaving Marvel for a significant portion until now she's coming back. Yeah.
If she directed Thor: The Dark World, she would have been the first woman to direct a Marvel movie or a superhero movie, I think. Just plain and simple superhero film, yeah. But she ended up going on to do Wonder Woman. And
so is she still the first woman to direct a superhero film?
It's a good question. I'm racking my brain to think of another. I think I think
that was why this was a big deal. It was the first female-led superhero film
directed by a
female director. Yeah. So it's a breakthrough for just that comic book film industry alone.
Exactly.
Very, very important.
So her
landmark that DC was able to reach before Marvel was, which I bet you they were like, we should have done that Black Widow movie so much faster.
Yeah, so much faster. So in her repertoire here, going back, her first thing, she did a couple short films in 2001. She did the indie film Monster in 2003.
That's what she's most known for, right?
Yeah, it's starring Charlize Theron. I've still not seen it. I've heard good things. Yeah. I've heard it's a cool take on the Monster movie.
Cool.
She directed a few episodes of Arrested Development, Entourage, a couple TV things here and there.
You could see the Entourage slip in a little bit in this movie.
Oh, yeah?
with Chief.
And then she will go on, after Wonder Woman in 2017, to direct a couple episodes of the TV series I Am the Night for Netflix, and then she is directing Wonder Woman 1984, which comes out this year, maybe. Pretty sure it comes out this year.
It'll come out this year.
Yeah, whether or not anyone goes sees it.
It's whether it's in the theater or not.
Yeah. Written by Alan Heinberg and a screenplay by Zack Snyder. The interesting thing about this guy, this writer, holy God, John, not the best
track record.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He was a producer for a lot of Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, cool.
Sex in the City.
You McDreamy or McSteamy?
I don't know. I actually don't know what that means. He wrote a lot of
living under a rock for like 20 years.
He wrote a lot of the OC, as well,
He's a doctor guy.
and Party of Five. Back in the day.
Nice.
So not like a crazy.
I thought that Jeff Johns had a heavy influence on the stories of this movie, but maybe that's uncredited. I thought that was when he took over. Because he took over DC Films. I don't know. This is old news. I don't even know if this is in effect anymore. But remember, they after Suicide Squad was received really poorly, they were like a week later or something like that. They were like, Jeff Johns will not be writing comics on a monthly basis anymore. He's been promoted to head of the story group for DC Films, and they started that new umbrella or something like that. And I thought that he had. So it might credit Zack Snyder, but this movie does not feel like a Zack Snyder movie.
Hold on. We'll get into our thoughts about the movie here in a second. So the only other credits on the writing directing side is directed Patty Jenkins, writers Alan Heinberg, story by Zack Snyder, Alan Heinberg story, Jason Fuchs story by William Moulton Marston, creator of Wonder Woman, and Harry G. Peter.
Polygamous relationship. Fun fact. There's a documentary about it.
Interesting.
William Moulton Marston and the Wonder Women, I think is what it's called. It's
wow.
They had 3 ways, they were into bondage and stuff. It's if you go back and read those 1940s Wonder Woman comics, it's they were into some weird stuff.
So
Good for them, though.
The documentary about your life.
Tink.
Domestic box office. Or let's do the budget. You want to know how much money this movie made?
I'm going to say it is... $220.
$150 million.
Really?
Production budget of $150 million. That means
I guess that's what happens when you don't have all CGI villains the whole time.
$25 million less than Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. Half the budget of Justice League.
Okay.
Making this movie, mid-tier in terms of budgets, because it's Man of Steel, $225, BVS, $260 million.
Yeah, 150 is pretty...
150 is pretty low.
That's like an Ant-Man number.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then the low end of the spectrum is Birds of Prey, $82 million. Didn't even crack the $100 million.
Haven't seen it.
We'll get there. A couple weeks. An interesting thing to point out here. $150 million budget, domestic take of $412 million, and an international box office of $408 million, bringing the worldwide total to $821 million. The highest grossing DCEU film to date.
Besides Aquaman. I thought we talked about this. Aquaman's $1 billion. We've been over this. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, this chart that I'm looking at might be off then.
Well, we'll talk about it when we get to Aquaman, I guess. But I'm pretty sure that was the one thing that I remember was that they're Aquaman crosses the...
Nope. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong figure. Yeah,
Okay,
Aquaman's... so this is the second highest. Aquaman's sitting at $1,143,000,000.
Unbelievable. I can't wait to watch that movie,
Yeah,
dude.
seriously.
I cannot wait. This is going to be so fun.
That podcast is going to be a shit.
Talk about it. That movie's going to be as long, if not longer, than Aquaman, that pod.
Yeah. So before we get into the plot, John, what did you think of Wonder Woman?
Okay. I love this movie. I think it's really fun. It's got... The violence is actually very visual, which is interesting. And the thing about it, especially in the beginning when we get through the plot and stuff like that, on the Themyscira and the No Man's Land, is a lot of it is pretty well lit in terms of just lighting in general, as opposed to the dark dread things where Suicide Squad, all the action sequences were in a dark room or a dark alleyway or a dark street. So being able to see the graphic violence is pretty interesting, but when you're not dealing with the graphic violence in the scape of World War II, there's some really good lighthearted comedy in here. There's a good chemistry between your romantic leads. Got a great list of actors in this movie. I mean, like, they got freaking Robin Wright to come in for like 10 minutes, and she's just shooting 3-pointers the whole time. Yeah, I really... So I remember I saw this movie opening week. I had gotten back from Europe before you guys did, so I got to see it opening week, and Kaylee and I went together, and we saw it together for the first time, and we looked over at each other when they get to London, and she's like, oh, a baby! And she's just, like, walking all over the place, and we're like, this movie's, like, pretty... like really lighthearted, which is what sets it apart from the previous 3 that we've done. This was the first one to do that,
right?
And obviously, as we watch Aquaman and Shazam, a lot of them have replicated that kind of like, oh, we don't have to take things quite so seriously. But there are still segments of this movie that you're like, man, this is dismal. Like, why? This is a lot of CGI. Like, there it has its ups and downs. But overall, I really enjoy this movie, especially for the first and second act of the movie.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I haven't seen this movie since the theater. This is the first time that I've seen it. And it's funny that you bring up Europe because, when we were in Europe, John and I and a couple of other of our buddies, we were like, oh, let's see a movie in a foreign country because it'll be a cool experience since we're all big movie fans. It'll be fun to like get that experience. So we were in Prague, and we were thinking, oh, Wonder Woman's out. That would be a cool one to see in a foreign theater because we were both excited. But John was like, I think your argument where you were like, oh no, me and Kaylee.
No, it wasn't out yet.
I thought it came out.
No, because I got back to America on like June 1st.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we wanted to see it, but it wasn't out yet.
And what did we see instead?
Depending on the billboard that you see. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales. Yeah. Have you seen those billboards though, where it's like Pirates of the Dead Man Caribbean Tell No Tales?
It has a different name in like a bunch of different regions.
It's like Edge of Tomorrow, Live Die Repeat.
Right. Yeah. So we made the lovely choice to see Pirates 5.
So we saw it in English with Czech subtitles. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was a cool experience.
It was a good time.
Yeah, that theater was whack as fuck.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Czech teenagers in there, and they were totally going to go in there to make out, and then there's like 4 Americans sitting.
We're like, what's up, fuckers? We're here to watch
Jack Sparrow, baby!
Johnny Depp!
Yeah.
But yeah, so I haven't seen it since it came out in 2017.
Are we going to do a Pirates of the Caribbean in review?
I am 100% in for Pirates.
I'm going to check out after the 3rd episode. I'll let you know.
Yeah, so rewatching this, fresh eyes for the first time in 3 years.
Because you saw it with me. Your first time was with me and Austin?
This sounds familiar.
Or Nate. I think Carly was there too. I know we had a group of 4. Maybe it was my sister. I don't remember. But I remember this summer vividly because there were some things that happened in my personal life that made me very upset. So I went to the movies a lot that year. As my way of escaping. So I saw Wonder Woman in the theaters 5 times. I paid to see it. I didn't pay every time because like when you go with your parents, they pay and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
But I saw it with Kaylee. I saw it with you and some friends. I took Nate and my sister to see it. I saw it with Connor and his parents. I think I saw it with just my mom and my dad. Yeah. So I went and saw it a couple times, and then The Last Jedi came out later that year, and I saw that movie 5 times in the theater as well. Right. So. But yeah, 2017 was also a great movie year, by the way. We got to go back and look at that.
Yeah, lineup pretty solid.
That was a great year. Yeah, we had Blade Runner 2049, Wonder Woman, Guardians 2, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Last Jedi, which you don't like as much as I do, but it still came out that year.
It's still a good movie.
I think there was a Deadpool 2 that year, or was it the following year? I don't remember.
I don't know.
There was like 5 comic book movies though that year, and then a Star Wars movie and Blade Runner. Thor Ragnarok came out that year. Yeah, dude. Black Panther, I think. Yeah. That movie was great.
You want a good time, Radiovania fans? Go back and check out We Got Hammered and Saw Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite episodes that we've done. Mm-hmm. Good review where we don't remember half the movie.
Good stuff.
But yeah, so got to get my thoughts out on the table. Rewatching this with fresh eyes, I hate to say it, I didn't love it as much.
Okay.
I still think it's a really fun movie.
Yep.
I think that the third act is like hot trash. Like, and that's the thing that really bothers me is that like I want to like this movie and you get these great moments throughout it. Like No Man's Land, we're going to talk about that here in a bit. No Man's Land, awesome. The stuff in the very beginning of the movie with Themyscira and like the island and her origin story, basically, and like the Chris Pine relationship with her and Gal. It's like there's so much awesome front-loaded stuff in this movie, and then I feel like as soon as you get to the very end where it's like, okay, we got to go after Dr. Poison and this guy, and there's this battlefield, and there's the reveal at the end with Professor Lupin. And then this terrible CGI fight happens at the end. Right. It's like I totally check out. And I'm going to be honest with you. First time in this series, I fell asleep.
You fell asleep?
I fell asleep.
How late did you watch it?
So I started the movie at like 11 or so, and then I remember like dozing off and going, and I like woke up and the credits were rolling, so I had to rewind and like watch the very end of it again. But yeah, dude, I like it. I think this is really good. I don't want to spoil where I think it would land in my rankings quite yet. Okay. But the fact that I just don't love the conclusion. I don't like the climax. I think that this movie has a $150 million budget. It's less than Suicide Squad. The visuals here, for the most part, are really good, but I do think there's some weird visual
stuff.
stuff.
A lot of practicals, though, for the most part. But yeah, there are a couple of Sam Raimi Spider-Man type visuals.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that you said earlier where you were like, this doesn't feel like a Zack Snyder movie. I actually feel completely the opposite. I feel like this feels so much like 300 and Immortals. And those earlier Zack Snyder, Sucker Punch too, I get.
I was thinking more like in the DC ones that we've been watching.
Sure, yeah. But like, there's so much of the slow-mo, speed ramping fight scenes where it's like, and then it slows down, and then it's like all that, and it's like, that is so Zack Snyder to me. That's like so how he does his fight scenes and choreography. And I didn't do research as to who was like second unit or action directors, and I just looked up, director Patty Jenkins. So you would assume that, she probably had final edit. I would assume that Warner Brothers like chipped in on some stuff, and like every studio makes notes. But a lot of the movie reminded me very much of a Zack Snyder film, and I feel like the action especially does that. Now the writing, much better across the board. Dialogue doesn't sound stupid. I like that this movie has a message.
There's like a couple, and we'll talk about them. There's some line deliveries where I'm just like, ooh, there had to have been another take.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah, the part that I agree with you about that. I didn't really think about the action sequences, but that I can totally see that. It's kind of like the Matrix, Charlie's Angels, the slow mos and stuff, which is cool.
It's fine when you sparingly.
Yeah,
it's
Zack
fine
definitely
when you
is not the first person to do it.
No.
The third act is where I feel like it's a Zack Snyder movie. Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I just hate.
And I can see them being like, Patty, we need you to maybe make it nighttime for the third act because Zack's movies are at night and we want this to fit in.
And it's also easier to hide bad CGI.
It's easier to make Ares look cooler. Could you do that? And she's like,
fine. How much? Show me the check.
Yeah, give me the money. She got paid that check to come back for 84.
For sure.
And I'm so glad that they got her.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is that like, and I'll finish up my thoughts, is that as much of this movie that I didn't like it as much this time as I remember liking it the first time. I still really enjoyed it, which is saying how much I like the first two acts. Like, even though I think the third act completely falls apart. Like, it completely falls apart. I think that there's almost nothing redeemable.
We'll talk about it when
we will talk about it.
But I don't think it completely falls flat. There's still some good emotional beats there.
There's one good emotional beat. And that's the thing.
That's all you need.
That's not for me. For me, it's the movie where it's like I wanted the end to be the climax of this movie is No Man's Land, and when you have something so incredible like that in a film, that's one of my favorite moments in a superhero movie ever. Is that moment because of how powerful it is and what it says and what it does for this character. You need to end your movie feeling that same sort of like. It's not good when I'm nodding off at the very end, but I'm like alert as a bee at the very beginning.
How much wine did you have when you watched this?
I don't remember. Maybe a few. I know I was drinking White Claws.
Okay, how many White Claws did you have when you watched this?
I don't know. Who are you, my dad?
I'm just saying. I think you might not have slept through it if you were not drunk and watching it so late.
Okay, well maybe not.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, for the sake of my
this
argument.
was the one. Okay, well, I'll throw this out there.
Okay, throw it out.
This was the first of the 4 that we've talked about that I haven't had to watch it in 2 segments. Every
Is
other
that
one
for your personal enjoyment, or like?
Yeah, I had to take breaks in the other ones. Like, I had to be like, I gotta walk away from this for a little bit. Yeah, so I'm glad that we're 2 opposite sides of the coin. I unabashedly love this movie. Sometimes, I mean, you talk about this with the way I am with video games. I get really attached to one thing, and I just want to binge the hell out of it because it brings me joy, right? So it's like comfort food, or some type of therapy and stuff like that. And this movie came out at a time when I needed it, and I think there's a really good message in here that we're going to talk about that other people need in this country right now.
Yeah.
So,
and again, I don't think we're very on opposite ends. I still like this movie a lot. I think because of some of the plot decisions toward the end, it makes me like, it's one of those situations where I want it to be better. And that's why it's like kind of disappointing to me. And I think that's why 84 is going to nail it, because they know where they made missteps in the past.
Yeah,
and
I think 84 has the potential to be significantly better.
I 100% agree.
And the reason why I think they will be able to do that is spoilers if you haven't seen the trailer of 84. Jump ahead like 30 seconds, but they still have Chris Pine in it, so they can still play off of each other in whatever capacity he takes. If he's in the movie, which it looks like he's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
The core of this movie, for me, and for a lot of people, I'm sure, is the chemistry between those two.
100%. Mm-hmm. Best part of this entire movie.
It's amazing.
Chris
Pine, dude. The Hollywood Chris Bowl. This is a tough year.
Little trivia here. This is Gal Gadot's first movie as like top billing.
Yep.
So this is
in the Fast movies.
She was.
Right? Yeah.
She was in Fast.
She was in Night and Day. Mm-hmm. Very small cameo.
Yeah. And that's like where I'll cap it off, is even though I have problems with this movie, the goodness shines so bright.
Yeah. Well, we should talk that there's problems with all the DC movies. That's why we're doing these reviews.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's like watching this too. It's like,
they're all flawed.
It would be interesting if I could like knock myself out and have memory loss and only watch this movie not knowing anything else about the DCEU, because just inherently seeing that DC logo pop up at the beginning and knowing that I just watched Suicide Squad, there's part of me where I'm like, okay, I know this universe is flawed, period.
Relax.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know how I'd feel about this movie if I didn't know about all the other tendrils that come off of this and where they end up going after this, because there is another drastic dip after this with Justice League.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should probably just get into it.
Yeah, should we real quick though, for one more logistic piece that I wanted to talk to you about?
Okay.
Is Gal the only Wonder Woman that you have had any type of like exposure to in your pop culture fandom?
So,
or is there another show or game or book that you have? Like, is this the first time that you really got immersed in, like, Wonder Woman was seeing this movie?
Before I answer, I'll say that what I should keep starting the show off with is that I'm not a DC expert. John is the DC expert. So John knows a ton about the comics. He's watched so much stuff. He knows way more than I do. I'm really only into the films. And so I have, Zach has questions for John. But John's a knowledge bank. I am, like, very surface level on the DC universe beyond the movies.
The thing is, the movies are the worst part of the universe. Like, the universe is so rich. We'll talk about that another time, though. But yeah,
sure.
So, is this though your first real exposure to the
aside
character?
from seeing Wonder Woman pop up in the Justice League cartoon from when I was a kid?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
because my favorite Wonder Woman is the one from the Justice League cartoon, the Susan Eisenberg one. I think she was really great. That was really my first full exposure. I watched the Linda Carter show a couple times as a kid. My mom was really into it.
I used to watch TV Land for like Three Stooges, and Wonder Woman would pop up, and I would be like, this is fine. And
Super Friends reruns on like Saturday morning cartoons, but those shows are so like hokey and stuff. They're great, but mostly she's just there to like fly people around in the invisible jet. Unfortunately, they don't give her much to do. But yeah, I would say that the Susan Eisenberg animated Wonder Woman was like, they really fleshed her out in that show. She takes a big role as one of the leaders of the Justice League. That's my personal favorite. But I mean, Gal is definitely fantastic at it. So
yeah,
want to talk about this movie?
Let's do it, dude. Let's fucking roll it.
All right. So we open up at Belle Rave prison, and Deadshot is just kidding. So this movie
got him.
This movie opens up with a voiceover. Not the first time they've done it in a DC movie. They open with a voiceover for BVS 2 with Ben Affleck.
That's how the dream starts.
The dream started the same. It always starts the same. But yeah, so it's Wonder Woman, and she's doing a voiceover talking about how she wanted to save the world, but she learned something about a truth about mankind a long time ago.
Sure.
We zoom in on Paris, which is where she's living. She works at the Louvre. We were just visiting the Louvre when we saw this movie like a month before, so that was really cool for me to be like, oh, I just went there. That's really neat.
Yeah.
But it opens up with a truck with the Wayne Enterprises logo just parking in the middle of the Louvre.
Can't go 5 minutes without seeing a fucking Batman thing in these DC movies.
He's the Iron Man of this universe. He's in all the movies.
For better or for worse. For better or for worse.
For worse. But yeah, we got a Wayne truck, and he's paying these men handsomely to take a briefcase all the way to Paris from Gotham City. And Wonder Woman is working at her desk, and they open the Wayne briefcase, and it is a photo. Same photo that we see in BVS of her with 4 other men. It's an old black and white photo. It's very tattered. This is not the copy, though. That was on the Luthor flash drive. This is the actual physical photo. And we get a little note from Bruce Wayne. I watched it on a smaller TV last night, so I don't remember what it says verbatim, but it's more of just something like, can't wait for you to tell me about your story.
Yeah.
So it's set in the present day of the current DC universe, where we know this is post BVS, I think we're led to believe. They don't mention Superman at all in this movie, but their relationship is established, her and Bruce Wayne. And that ties us into, let's learn about her story. So we go all the way back, and she's a little kid, and we are introduced to Paradise Island, also known as Themyscira. I had a note here where this transition sequence into this montage of her exploring Themyscira, I think the score is really good in this movie. At times, especially this opening and the No Man's Land sequence in particular. And you'll have to look up. I don't remember the composer off the top of my head, but I really enjoyed it when I was watching it last time. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually. I remembered this theme because I had seen this movie 5 times in a row in the summer.
So the artist who composed the score for Wonder Woman is named Rupert Gregson Williams. Oh boy. Okay.
Zach IMDb diving?
Yeah, okay, so this guy, he hasn't done much. His soundtrack credits Postman Pat the movie, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, Wallace and Gromit The Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, yeah. Open Season, Scared Silly.
So not even the main movie.
Yeah, the sequel.
Okay, well, this guy might have had a breakout year.
Legend of Tarzan in 2016. He did Hacksaw Ridge score in 2016.
Okay. Academy Award nominated, not for the score, but the movie itself.
Wonder Woman in 2017. He will go on to do the Aquaman score in 2018.
Okay. They kept him on retainer.
And then most recently, he did the score for Abominable, which is that kids' CGI movie about the snowman.
Very cool.
So, what a career.
Yeah. But so this opening, we're introduced to a young Diana. She is running away from her tutor, off to go watch the training sessions, where we see Robin Wright's Antiope, who's the general of the Themyscirian army, is training a bunch of women, and she is kind of like mimicking movements very comically, just like doing little punches, like a little kid pretending to be a superhero. Which I liked this because it reminded me of little Clark pretending to be a superhero.
Yeah, for sure.
Steel. So I liked that connective thread of like these heroes that we're being introduced to have wanted to be heroes for a long time.
Yeah.
Or have wanted to learn to fight for the good of the cause.
It was at this point in the film where I was watching it with Carly and a friend of ours who was staying over, and it was at this point in the film where her friend goes, "Why is her head so fucking big?" And then I couldn't stop seeing it.
The kid?
Kid actress for Wonder Woman's got a fucking melon.
All right, well, that's rude.
Sorry, kid actress that played young Wonder Woman.
She's got more money than we do. Let's just let that sink in.
Yeah, Hundo P. But anyway, but regardless, it was distracting. Because once I realized it, I was like, man, this kid's got a big head. And I don't know.
I love that these are your takeaways from the movie.
Sorry.
This is off to a great start.
Also, I wanted to... I missed it in the very beginning, but I had in my notes, Ben Affleck's note says, maybe one day you'll tell me your story. And then I wrote ... over a few cocktails.
There you go. Yeah, that's what
Ben
it
Affleck
is.
trying to smash.
Dude, in real life, definitely. And the character, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that we'll probably talk about more when we get to the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League next episode, which is this relationship that they kind of teased a little bit between them, whether it's a platonic friendship or I don't know. It's handled better in the cartoon, though, that's for sure. But yeah, if you guys didn't know this, Batman, he gets it.
I am not looking forward to rewatching Justice League.
Well, but then in next year we can come back and we do it
exactly,
again.
Yeah. Run it back. Justice League Part 2.
Send it back. Yeah, I'm not excited to talk about The Flash at all. But we're talking about a different movie.
That's right, we are.
Yeah. So Diana is running away from her tutor. She gets caught by her mom, who's played by Connie Nielsen, who the only other exposure I've had to this actress is Gladiator.
Yeah,
as
that's right.
The sister of Joaquin Phoenix. I don't remember the character's name off the top of my head. But she is playing Queen Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons. And she meets up with Antiope, and they are discussing about how Diana wants to start her training, but the mother is reserved from doing this. She doesn't want her. She doesn't need to, is what she says. There's no invasion to prepare for. She's just a child. She doesn't need any of this stuff. So then we transition to a little origin within an origin story, because technically this whole movie is an origin story.
Yeah.
But we get the backstory of how the Amazons were created. And this is over a bedtime story that Hippolyta is telling Diana, and it's kind of about how the gods created the Amazons. So we'll do a brief version of it, which is pretty much
right.
If you don't know the Greek pantheon, Zeus is like the king, and then he's got a bunch of sons and brothers, and they all hate each other and turn into animals and have sex with humans and stuff, and that's how Hercules is made. But in the DC version, all of them are wiped out for the most part, which is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
At least in the DCEU. In the comics, they're not wiped out.
Here's Zach has questions.
Yeah.
The Old Gods. That's a DC property. Does that not have to do with any of this at all?
Yes. So the Old Gods are the ones that are from Earth. So this is Greek pantheon, Atlantean, stuff like that. The new gods are cosmic. And that's Apocalypse, High Garden, or not High Garden, that's Game of Thrones. What's it called? New Genesis, things like that. Which we'll talk a little bit more about in Justice League, because that's the only time they really show up. So.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up. The Old Gods was announced as a movie, and I think it got canceled.
Probably smart. Probably smart. But pretty much the gist that we need to know from this story is that the Amazons were created by Zeus to help be a bridge to mankind because they were fighting each other in the ancient times.
Right.
They helped to show them love and compassion, and then they became slaves to the gods. They liberated themselves, led by Hippolyta, and then Ares went really bad. He wants humans to be corrupted. He wants them to fight a long time that is fed from his power. So he killed all the other gods. And Zeus, with his dying breath, gave the Amazons a place to live, which is Themyscira. It's hidden away from the world, and he created the god killer in case Ares ever returned. But Ares is presumed dead in the end of this bedtime story.
And I will say about the story, I really like the art style. I think they did a good job with it. I would have, whenever they do this kind of thing, they did the same thing in Black Panther, like at the very beginning with the sand.
Yep.
And I like this storytelling thing, but every time I see it, I'm always like, I kind of wish I was seeing real actors do it, but I get that you can't do that because it would cost so much money.
I like the bedtime story thing. My favorite version of it is in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They're doing the Three Brothers story, and it's like that really gothic animation style. It's like, that's the best example of it, I think. But I don't think it takes you out of the movie too much.
No. I like it. I wasn't saying it took me out of it. I was just saying, like, every time I see one of those, I'm always like, you know what? It would be kind of cool to actually see actors doing this.
It just becomes an extra 30 minutes. Whereas like this, they can do like a PowerPoint presentation that moves. Yeah. So anyway, this happens. Zeus. What we need to learn from it again is that they created this god killer to fight against Ares. And she wants
a fucking giant sword.
Yep. And she wants Diana wants to see what it is and takes her to the vault, and it's a sword. And she's like, I hope it'll never have to be called to arms. And Diana's like gawking over this thing. She's like, this sword is so cool.
It's like, I'm gonna kill people with it.
That's not exactly what she says. But also during the history lesson is what I was calling it. We see a little montage of her beginning her training in secret with Robin Wright.
Right.
In like caves and stuff like that. So they again flash forward. We have a new actress playing Diana. She's like a preteen version. Her and Robin Wright are fighting in the forest, and she's just kind of getting her ass whooped. And Robin White's trying to he's like, you're stronger than you are. You need to tap into this potential that you have. Battles are never fair. You have to be stronger than this. Mom finds out, gets real mad, shows up,
gets real mad,
sends her away, and then we start to talk a little bit, and we get some more backstory between the two of them, and how the Queen mentions that the more Diana becomes powerful, the more he will find her. And Antiope's like, I know Ares is alive. You know this too. You can feel it. He's going to come back eventually. We need to prepare her. And we don't know why this is completely important quite yet until we get a reveal later on in the movie. But
a reveal.
Kind of.
Where it's like, you can telegraph this. You're like, something's up with this Diana and this sword. I don't know if I believe all this hocus pocus. Zach has questions for John.
Okay. Yeah.
The idea, why when she gets stronger is Ares able to find her? Is this a thing that's...
If she becomes more well-known in the world,
and that's
Paradise Island, then Ares is going to be able to find her. He can't find Paradise Island.
Okay, so I was wondering if there was because the way they say it, they never say specifically, if she gets stronger, people will know her name. They just say, if she gets stronger, Ares will find her. And for the whole movie, I'm thinking okay, is he able to sense someone's power
Sniffs
level?
her out like a bloodhound.
Yeah, so if she all of a sudden knows how to do triple kick flips.
Maybe he does. He is attracted to war and violence, and if she becomes more powerful and becomes a leader of battles, maybe he'll be able to find her easier.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question, I guess. But again, that could have easily been fixed with that one line of dialogue where it's like, if the world knows her name.
Exactly.
Yeah. But then everyone will be able to find her too. So, but anyway, this ends with Hippolyta being like, fine, you can train her, but you have to train her 10 times harder than any other Amazon has ever been until she's even better than you. So we get a new training montage sequence with Gal fully in the character now. We're not dealing with younger flashback versions of her. And she's just wrecking people during this training montage. Which I like this part quite a bit. I think it's pretty cool. Pretty cool action sequences. And it ends with her having a one-on-one showdown with Robin Wright. And she kind of gets the better of Diana. And then Diana does the bracelet smash and blasts everybody onto their butts.
She throws up. She goes, "X, go and give it to you."
Go and give it to you. Yeah, the bracelet smash is a pretty common Wonder Woman trope, as we saw in BVS, but it's also pretty common in other mediums.
Got some fun facts here to drop in. Kobe Smulders was considered for the role of Wonder Woman. She went on to voice the character in the Lego Movie, and then also she voices Wonder Woman in the Lego Movie, which is kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And then she's in the Marvel Universe, as we know, as Maria Hill. Sorry. Also, an undisclosed role in this film was offered to Cate Blanchett, but she turned it down. It doesn't list who she would have been playing.
I think it's pretty obvious it would have been her mom.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Queen.
She took the role of Hela in Thor Ragnarok, and I think that she made the right call.
She got the better end of the deal, but also I like Connie Nielsen a lot.
Yeah, no, they're both fine, but they're also just like such minor roles.
Yeah. We should also talk about this while we're still in Themyscira. Do you find it interesting that because Gal Gadot is Israeli, that they made all the other actors that play Themyscirans have a Mediterranean Israeli accent?
Yeah.
And do you think they are good at it?
No, I think no. I think there's
I think Connie Nielsen might be the only one that gets a little close, but Robin Wright's is not that great.
No.
And it's, especially if you know her as like Jenny and from House of Cards and like all this other stuff. It's like it's really hard to see her.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's a cool idea that they tried to do, but I don't think I think somewhere along the lines, Patty, and big ups Patty Jenkins for having she had a vision for this movie that you can say that regardless of the output. But I like the idea that she was like, we're going to center everything around Wonder Woman. That is this movie. It's not Wonder Woman Dawn of Justice, where we got all these other extra characters fucking around in here. This movie is about Wonder Woman, so it's kind of cool to see them embrace Gal Gadot's heritage in this with Themyscira. But I think it was questionable acting most of the time. But I don't think it was a bad decision because I'm able to overlook it and just be like, well...
It's not the worst accent work I've seen in a movie.
No, Halle Berry in X-Men is the worst I've ever seen.
Do you know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? Same thing that happens to everything else.
And then she just dropped
the best accent work in a comic book movie is definitely Black Panther, hands down. They all nail it. For sure. Yeah, all of them. But I think it's cool that they based Themyscira in that realm because it would make sense that it's close to Greece because of the Pantheon and the history, and it would be in the Mediterranean. And in most versions of the comics, it is. But yeah, I agree. Some of the people's accents, not as great.
Not fabulous. But it's fine. Again, it's one of those things where... And this is a thing that we'll get to when we get to the third act, where it's like a lot of this first half, there's some like I could be nitpicking.
But it's still overall really good.
Yeah, and so I'm able to look past that. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good example.
It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah, but it's like, fuck. This is going to be a bad example, but I'm thinking like Back to the Future. Mm-hmm. Back to the Future 1 is definitely dated. It's of its time. And there's things in that movie that you could nitpick, but the movie is so fucking good that you don't care about all that stuff.
35 years old this year.
No shit, really?
Yeah, it came out in 85. Yeah.
But then, like...
That's a good movie.
Back to the Future interview. Let's do it, baby.
Yeah. I actually haven't watched the second and the third one in a long time.
Yeah, me either. But again, like I was saying, you get to the third act of this, and that's why kind of like the movie leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth at the end because I want to like the end more. But it's giving me more things I don't like than things that I do like. But again, that's why the first half is so strong. I think it's so strong in the first half. But
don't you think it's weird that Doc Brown tests his DeLorean out in the parking lot of a mall when he knows there are Libyan terrorists looking for him? Like, wouldn't you go to like a cornfield or something? Definitely. Like, they're definitely in Middle America.
Yep.
Right? They're probably in Ohio somewhere, to be honest with you, or like Indiana near Pawnee and. What's the town from Stranger Things?
Gary, Indiana.
No, that's not it. Anyway,
Hawkins.
Hawkins. Yeah, they're probably close to that. All right, back to Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So she leaves this training session because she knocked everybody out, and she's like trying to figure out what her power is. And as she looks out over the sea, we see that coming through the protective bubble is an airplane that crashes into the ocean. Diana dives in and goes and gets it, and we're introduced to Chris Pine. Who is sinking into the water because he can't get out of his plane seatbelt. I feel like that was a thing that happened with a lot of planes for a long time.
Probably.
And Diana rescues him.
Like, no one thought about this? Yeah, we get into the water, no one thought this over?
Diana brings him out, pulls him to shore, and we see that through the other side of the bubble, once you leave Paradise Island, it's like a dark, murky ocean.
Jesus, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And we see a bunch of Germans with flashlights, and they're looking for where he went, and they're wondering where the fog came from, and all of this is alluding to the protective elements that Zeus created. But we get Steve Trevor is his name. We won't find out his name for a couple minutes.
Yep.
But Chris Pine is passed out on shore, and he just spits up the water, and Wonder Woman looks at him, and this is where we get our meet cute, folks. All right, so she looks at him, and she's like, "You're a man," and they don't see men on this island very often, and probably if they do, they've killed them, especially in Diana's lifetime. And he gets the great first quip of the movie, which is, "Yeah, do I not look like one?" And she's just she's curious about what he is, and she asks, like,
the reverse shot of him on the beach looking up, and then her looking down at him. He's like,
He's like squinting because he's looking in the sun too.
Yeah.
But the Germans break through the bubble because apparently you can just walk through the bubble. It's just a mirage.
Don't get it's that.
It's not like Gorilla City in Africa or Wakanda.
Yeah, where it's just kind of like it's its own hidden
you
thing.
Just go through it. Like I'm sure there's been plenty of explorers that have accidentally crashed.
They cross through the bubble and they're like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out,"
yeah.
and they turn their boat right around and get.
Or most people will go through and they see a bunch of women training on the beach.
Like, all right, let's go.
All right.
That's where the Amazonians get their meat.
Ooh,
they just
dark take.
Yeah, all the
very twisted take.
The very sex-driven explorers that come through, they just shoot them and they cook them.
Oh my goodness, the X-rated version of Wonder Woman. Yeah. So the Germans, in typical evil German fashion, just immediately start going guns blazing as they show up. As the Amazons prepare to defend from invaders, Germans shoot with guns, Amazons are shooting with arrows and spears, and Steve and Diana kind of peel off and hide behind a rock. So really, we don't have to go in depth to all the action sequences, but this one I think we should mention is one of the first DC action sequences in broad daylight, yeah. Probably since Smallville in Man of Steel.
Definitely. There's no action sequence in BVS that takes place that's not at night, and then Suicide Squad's all at night for some reason.
The whole movie.
The whole movie's
except for Katana. She's got my back. That's a sunset.
She's got the sword of her dead.
I would advise not being killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims. Yeah. Rick Flag shows up in this movie.
You would have made a great Rick Flag.
Dude, in another life.
In another life.
Yeah. I'm in charge of Suicide Squad. Look at me.
I'm David Ayer now.
I am Rick Flag now. So this is a really, like you mentioned earlier, there's the action sequences. There's a lot of slow motion shots in here. My favorite one though is when they boost Robin Wright with the shield, and she's got the triple arrow leg shot, cool. And she like pegs all those Germans. Steve is obviously helping out to fight against the Germans, because we will find out soon that he's been fighting them for years.
Yep.
But the casualty that we get, besides a lot of Amazons and Germans, is we lose Robin Wright in this scene. So she takes a bullet for Diana and dies, with her last words being like muttered, and it's like, "God killer, you gotta go." And she's like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" And then she dies. So. Pour some out for Jenny.
Pour one out for Jenny.
Pour one out for Jenny.
That has to be the only role that I really know her for.
Jenny. We should do a Forrest Gump pod. Let's just do all the pods.
Every movie ever made.
Do you like Forrest Gump?
It's overrated, but yeah, I like it. That's one of my hottest movies. Whenever anyone's like, "What's a hot take that you have about movies?" Forrest Gump is a fine movie, but it's vastly overrated.
You don't like Tom Hanks very much, do you?
He's good. No, I like Tom Hanks a lot.
Private Ryan?
I don't like war movies. War movies are weird for me. It's like, elements of Saving Private Ryan I really, really like, but war movies, it's hard for me to connect with them unless there's, like, I was not excited for Dunkirk, saw it, and I was like, it's fine. It's definitely my least favorite Nolan movie. Didn't see 1917. I heard it was fantastic. Cinematography's great, but it's like, for some reason, movies just about war don't interest me unless there's
unless there's an Amazon who is in the middle of in the war. Sure, yeah. Yeah, or Steve Rogers showing up in the middle of the war.
That's an interesting one. You need a little
bit of that fantasy involved.
Exactly, or I need something a little bit deeper. Like, I don't like when movies are just marketed as war movies. Like, I think that's part of the reason why I didn't have any interest in 1917, because it's a one-shot action movie about, like, being on a battlefield, and I'm like, yeah, I get that there's probably an emotional story in there, and I would like to see it eventually, but it's just like, I'm not rushing out to it, but I'll watch them if they're good. Mm-hmm. They're just not my favorite.
What is your favorite?
Favorite war movie of all time?
Yeah.
Name some. I don't know. Lord of the Rings.
So you got Saving Private Ryan, you got Fury, you got The Patriot, you got Braveheart, you got
Pearl Harbor.
We Were Soldiers, Pearl Harbor, Captain America and the First Avenger. I don't know. I'm coming up blank.
Of that list that you've said, Captain America.
There's a Civil War movie, Glory. Have you seen that one with Denzel about the black platoon?
I have not.
For the Union. Can
I say Inglourious Bastards? That's a war movie. Is that a war movie?
No, it's a Tarantino movie.
Those are different.
Yeah, definitely. It's a tough genre. They're all really hard to watch and gory. And
is Casablanca?
No.
A war movie?
That's an espionage movie. It's a romance movie before anything else, though. Do you like Casablanca?
Yeah.
All right, we got to stay on track. Too.
Getting a little sidetracked here, talking about horror movies.
Oh my goodness! All right, so we lose. Okay, so we lose Antiope, and they're about to turn on Steve Trevor. They're like, "You brought them here," and he's like, "No." And they're like, "What's your name?" He's like, "I can't tell you." And they're like, "Why are you here?" He's like, "I can't tell you that either."
Yeah.
So the next natural thing to do as an Amazon is to put the lasso of truth on him, which is the lasso of Hestia.
Okay, so is that the actual? Mm-hmm. Is that the lasso of Hestia?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like the goddess. Yeah.
So do they ever call was the lasso of truth the name the lasso of truth, was that made popular because of the Wonder Woman show with Linda Carter?
Yeah. But they really started to infuse the Greek mythology aspect of Wonder Woman with the George Perez run in the 80s and then a couple other subsequent runs after that.
Okay.
But yeah, so they put the lasso of truth on him, and he just spills all the beans. He's like, "I'm Steve Trevor. I'm a spy.
I'm a spy.
I'm a spy." And he's talking about how it burns when you don't tell the truth, which is cool to kind of find out how it works. Because in the comics, you're just like, why do people just obey this thing? It's a rope.
Yeah, it's magic.
But yeah, and so what we find out is that he serves for the U.S. in World War I. He's working assigned to British intelligence. He's trying to find out about what the Germans are up to because we're close to the end of the World War I at this point. And we get a little sequence of him breaking into a lab in the Ottoman Empire where we find out there is a general played by Danny, I think it's Houston or Huston. I don't remember.
I think it's Huston.
Yeah,
Danny
the guy
Huston.
from X-Men Origins Wolverine. He plays General.
What a fool!
Yeah, he plays Stryker.
I forgot that he was in that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then he plays General.
What a fucking
he plays
terrible
General
movie.
Ludendorff in this movie.
Who was an actual general.
Mm-hmm. And Ludendorff is working with Dr. Poison, and they're trying to develop new types of chemical warfare. That was the big deal in World War I, kids, is mustard gas and figuring out ways to get through gas masks. Steve Trevor finds her lab book, and he's like, I was supposed to just do reconnaissance, but I'm going to break all the rules the rest of the movie. So he takes the journal, he gets a plane, he blows up the place, and then he crashes on Themyscira, and that gets us caught up on his story. And so what we find out is that he's like, this is the war. It's killed 25 million people dead, civilians and actual combatants. Diana and the rest of the Themyscirians, I guess is how you say that, are appalled by this, but Diana's the only one that actually wants to leave and go help. And she thinks it's because Ares is manipulating the war, which this is not the first time in the comics and cartoons and stuff that they have used that plot device as, since Ares feeds off of conflict and violence,
right.
He's the one that's behind every war in history, is kind of how it's set up to be. From the Trojan War to modern terrorism, all that kind of stuff. This is how he feeds off of the human race. This is how he manipulates us if the Greek pantheon were to exist.
Zach has questions.
Go for it.
Is Ares Wonder Woman's Joker? Like in the comics, is Ares like the big bad in the Wonder Woman universe?
Ares is probably the big bad because he's a god, but her Joker, her true arch rival, is probably either, I would say, the Cheetah or Circe.
His character named Circe?
The witch, yeah. From Greek mythology. Turns people into animals.
Oh, right.
Have you ever read the Odyssey?
A long time ago, high school.
Yeah, she's
Definitely
the one
high
that
school.
has the island where people show up, and she welcomes gorgeous men. But you notice that when Odysseus is on the island, he notices that there's a lot of strange animals that seem to have weird melancholy behaviors, and that's because they're all humans that she's lured to her island and turned into animals. Yeah, fun fact. If you want to know more about Circe, there's a great, not from Game of Thrones, but there's a great Justice League Unlimited episode where Circe turns Wonder Woman into a pig.
Oh my god.
And Batman and Zatanna have to go to the underworld to find out a way to change her back into Wonder Woman.
Wow.
And it
lit.
It ends with Kevin Conroy singing a blues song because the only way he can break the spell is to make a deal with the devil herself, Circe. And
does he sing Devil Went Down to Georgia?
No, I wish. That'd be great. That'd be wonderful. But yeah, go check that one out. So, she's like, we gotta get out there. We are getting so off topic.
Hey, we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. We're rolling. We got nothing to do.
Her mom and the rest of the senators are like, no, we're not leaving. This isn't Ares. And she's like, it's our Amazon duty to protect the world from Ares and the gods. And she's like, but you're not an Amazon like the rest of us. And that was when Izzy looked over at me when watching the movie. She's like, ooh, that's harsh. I was like, yeah, kind of.
It's like, you were made from fucking clay.
Yeah.
You ain't nothing.
You were from dirt, son. So then we transition to this beautiful bath that's like top 10 movie baths for sure. Like, I want to sit in that bathtub. Thoughts in the bathtub.
Number 1, Wonder Woman. Number 2, the scene in Batman v Superman where Clark jumps into the bathtub with his fucking dirty ass shoes on.
DC likes naked people in the tub.
They like naked
There's
people
the tub in Suicide Squad. The Enchantress is sitting in a tub.
Right.
Is there a tub in Man of Steel? The goop that they put them in for the Phantom Zone. Yeah.
Or you could also say the bath thing.
Or the Genesis Chamber?
The Genesis Chamber, yeah.
Where is the Kryptonian Council now? Deceased.
Martha.
Martha.
Patty Jenkins said the reason for Chris Pine's nude scene was to get back at a lot of movies which had female frontal nudity in them.
Yeah, they make him a sex icon in this movie for sure.
This
one scene.
I will say, Chris Pine, looking cut like a fucking brick of cheese.
Oh, he's great. He's incredibly charming.
But the scene of him holding his dick as he like shimmies out of the tub, I'm like, this is just the most awkward shit I've ever seen in my life. It looks so bad.
When I saw this with Kaylee, I would say that the theater was like 75% women, just based on what I saw when I walked in and sat down. And people were like,
really?
Open during that scene. So like, it paid off if Patty Jenkins wanted to achieve that effect, which was to materialize men, I guess.
I mean, Chris Pine, there's a reason why they cast Chris Pine as like Spider-Man Prime in Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Because he's just like the perfect male. He looks like if you asked a computer to like generate what is attractive male.
Generate an American man.
Yeah, hot American male. What would you come up with? And it's like, Chris Pine. Long blonde hair, kind of shaggy a little bit, cut pecs, nice biceps, slender, tall. It's just like he fits every attribute for what women don't want in me. And so,
Steve Trevor's definitely not rocking the dad bod.
No, not
like most World War I soldiers probably had.
We'll see that dad bod in Justice League where they try to Ben Affleck pours like a fucking giant ration of bourbon into a glass.
Yeah, that was not acting at all. That was just that was just him on set that day.
What was the thing from Jay and Silent Bob? He's like, we got a code 37.
Code 37, dead hooker in Affleck's trailer.
Code 38, Ben Affleck poured too much bourbon in this scene and we got to take him home to sleep.
Oh, man. So this scene's actually pretty funny. She's asking him if he is an exemplary form of the male sex for humans, and he says he's above average, so you get a little penis joke in there.
A little dick joke.
But this
didn't think that one didn't land for me. I didn't like the dick joke.
No. But I do like I think their relationship is great. It makes me smile. It's very funny. But we get an emotional setup in this, which is she asks, "What is that?" And we all think she's asking about his wiener, but it's
his wiener.
It's his watch. And he talks about how his dad gave him this watch and that it's been through 2 tours of some type of war. And that it's still ticking, and she's like, why do you let that thing tell you what to do? What does it do? And he's like, it tells time. And it's important to him because his dad gave it to him, but it will be important to Diana for another reason later on.
Yeah. Zach has questions. You got to come up with a jingle or something.
Okay.
Is the bat?
I got a question. My name is Zach.
I like it.
Right.
Steve Trevor, canon?
Oh yeah.
Big time canon?
Big time canon.
Okay, because I've never heard the name Steve Trevor. Never heard of this dude in my entire life and anything ever. Until this movie.
He's Wonder Woman's Lois Lane. Always will be.
Okay, cool.
A lot of different iterations depending on the origin you read. Originally, when Wonder Woman came out in the wartime, obviously he was a World War II veteran as opposed to World War I. So
that's another question I had. Is do you think that if Captain America hadn't been as successful, this movie would have been a World War II movie?
Absolutely. They needed a different playing field. I also think that they did World War I because it's set in 1917, and this movie came out in 2017, and they really liked having her say, 100 years ago, I walked away from mankind. So I think they wanted to make it seem like she had been inactive for a century. That also might play into it. But I definitely think the fact that they already did Captain America, they're like, we'll just do World War I instead. Because there has been, Amazons are essentially almost immortal. So there's been a lot of iterations of how far back does Diana's ancestry actually go.
Sure.
So, but yeah, they originally meet in World War II. In the 80s, when they rebooted the Wonder Woman origin, they meet during the Cold War. In the modern comics, he works for Argus and like special operations and stuff like that. So yeah, Steve Trevor, totally canon for sure.
I just thought it was interesting. Like it's like you hear.
Also,
everyone knows the name Lois Lane, but I've never heard the name Steve Trevor.
I'm going to tell you something that you might not like.
Okay.
Okay. So World War II happens. Wonder Woman comes out in 1940. I think it's the first book. There is a guy. He's blonde. He fights in World War II. His first name's Steve. His last name's Trevor. And then a couple years later, they come out with another character who's blonde who fights in World War II. His name's Steve Rogers.
Wow.
There is a long history of Marvel and DC stealing from each other. You can fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure this was one that they just ripped off the name Steve. But also as World War II, baby boomers, there's only like 8 names. So, I don't know. Just an interesting fact that I thought about. I don't know if it's actually true or not.
Sure. Why would that make me angry?
Because you love Steve Rogers more than anything, and you want him to be the greatest. But he's not the first Steve.
Well, Steve... I almost said Steve Harvey. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Wonder Woman from No Man's Land.
Stan Lee would look out his window and be like, oh... Bus Man, put him in a comic. We got Bus Man. It's like, a lot of these comic origins and real history are not all that inspired. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman, Superman, it's like
Batman.
Exactly. All these things are like a lot of these. Almost every superhero origin story is very similar. It's not until you get to later where they started being like, okay, we've done this enough. Yeah, so how can we like do it differently?
This silver age of comics, which begins in like the 60s, 50s. Is when they really start to develop backstories. Because comics came out, mostly the superhero genre started with Action Comics #1, which is Superman, 1938. And all of them were like, they came out for a little bit, World War II happens in like 2 years, and then it's like all of these people are fighting Nazis every week. Wonder Woman fights Nazis, Green Lantern fights Nazis, Batman fights Colts and the KKK. Because he can't go to Europe. Superman fights Nazis.
I've knocked out Hitler 427 times.
And what they found out is that they did it for 10 years. World War II is over, and they're like, we get it. Like, you don't have to do these comics about World War II anymore. So then they reboot a lot of origins, or they create new versions. So that's when we get the newer version of the Flash that doesn't wear the World War I bucket hat, and we get a new version of Green Lantern that's actually from space. And that's when we start to get Marvel comics with the Fantastic Four and then eventually Spider-Man and stuff like that. And the X-Men.
Yeah.
Once we get to the nuclear era. But we're diverging quite a bit today.
Hey, it's fine, baby.
Quite a bit.
It's fine, baby. We are going to have to take a pause here so I can get more alcohol.
This is the marathon pod here. So this bath scene is still going on, Zach. But what I do like...
Bet your ass it is.
What I like about this is he's like, I gotta get back to the war, and she's like, why? And he's like, well, I guess I gotta try. He's like, my dad told me that you can either do something or do nothing, and I already tried doing nothing. So
yeah. Good line.
We find out that he's a dedicated soldier. And I do want to use this as a point that, like, it keeps getting better as the movie goes on, but Chris Pine, man, crushing it in this movie. Like,
yeah.
He's got really good line delivery. He's very professional. I don't know. I like this character a lot because I didn't really give two shits about Steve Trevor much until seeing this movie. And I think sometimes you see a portrayal of a comic book character in a movie that makes you like that character more. Best example of that is Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Iron Man's like a C- level Marvel character until that movie comes out, and now he's like third best known superhero in the world, probably. So yeah. So what this little conversation leads to is Diana's like, well, I'm gonna get this guy out of here. So she goes and she breaks into the vault and she gets her costume and the lasso and the shield and she takes the God Killer, quote unquote, sword. She goes back and gets Steve. And she's like, yeah, if you can get me to the war, I'm going to get you out of here. But you got to take me to Ares. And he's like, sure. And I like this part, too, because he's trying to use the compass, and it doesn't work because he's in fucking Paradise Island. But I thought that was a nice touch where he's like he's trying to figure out how to get out. And he's like, what the fuck? And he's like shaking it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get a little sailboat that they're going to leave on. And this is when Mama Bear shows up, and they have their little farewell. And this is important because this is something that's always happened in Wonder Woman, which is if you elect to leave Paradise Island, or if you are banished from Paradise Island for breaking the law, you are not allowed to return. If you do, you'll be arrested when you show back up. So this is a big thing that shows up in other ones, and I'm curious if they go back to Paradise Island in '84. What's going to happen when she gets there?
Take it to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
They will go back to that island.
But will it be a flashback, or will it be the first time she's returned since she
you go. I don't know. I can't predict it. I would say that it makes more sense that it would be she comes back.
I think
because
I think she takes the cheetah there.
Interesting. You think that's where she gets her power? Taps in a little bit.
I think she takes like a cat totem, like the Enchantress, and she accidentally breaks it.
She snaps the head off.
It turns into a cat.
drinks the cat fluid.
Enchantress.
June Moon.
Yeah, June Moon. So eventually, she's like, the thing that I like about this scene is she says, "Be careful in the world of men; they don't deserve you."
Yeah.
Which is something that's going to come back up. But they leave, and then we get more meet cute on the boat where they're talking about the concept of marriage.
I like this. I like all of this.
Yeah,
this is all great.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
She's like, I'm going to use this sword to kill Ares, and he's like, okay. He's just like
Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor.
He's just the old,
just fucking floating along.
Yeah,
he's
just
like, you know what,
for
whatever.
It. And she's like, "Are you gonna sleep too?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sleep over." He's trying to be a gentleman. You know, they skirt around this very well, I think, because pretty much for the whole movie, he never like makes a big move on her. You know what I mean? I don't know. Did you notice that when you were watching this? Like from, I don't know. Neither of us are female. We should fully disclose that. From that perspective, it's interesting to see how this
fully disclosed. We are not.
It's curious to see how this kind of relationship progresses. I guess.
Yeah, man. I mean, here's the thing: is that like it was so obvious, so obvious that what they wanted to do here was flip the script on the typical
man who's got the damsel in distress.
Exactly,
yeah.
right.
He's the damsel in distress.
Yes,
a lot.
he is an underpowered, very human male that is a soldier, and nothing really more than that. He never does anything spectacular. He has nothing but his own strength and his own means to overcome the situations that he's in, and he's suddenly in the presence of this god, basically.
Mm-hmm. And he has to ground her.
Yeah, and so the whole thing is that, you know, I'm sure that Patty Jenkins and the writing team sat down and they were like, okay, we're doing the first female-led superhero movie ever. Mm-hmm. I'm directing it. There's obviously going to be criticisms no matter what we do, but what can we do to make sure that we are paying as much respect to this woman and the women that adore her and idolize her? And I think the thing that you don't want to do is make her like the typical, like, oh, I've fallen in love with this strange man and all this stuff.
So
and it's
quickly,
like,
yeah.
Exactly. You don't want to fall into any of those stereotypes. So what they did is they reversed the fish out of water thing. Mm-hmm. And they, not reversed it, but they turn it on its head.
Yep.
And they do something really interesting with it, which is another, again, the first half of this movie, so strong in terms of how they treat this character and how they treat this world. And I loved so much the way it's like, she's freaking, like you said, oh my gosh, a baby. It's like, oh, holy shit. It's like, she doesn't like babies. She just has never seen a baby before. So it's cool. She knows this information. She's smarter than Chris Pine. I love the line where she's like, oh, I read about it. Like, I know about sex. I read about it in like
all 12 volumes. Cleo's Pleasure Valley.
And he's like, what? He was like, well, what was their thesis? And she was like, men are not necessary for pleasure or whatever. And it's like, she knows what's up. She knows she's better. She's smarter.
Yeah.
And the way that they handled it is so smart because, like, yeah, there's always going to be fuckheads on the internet that are going to have criticisms about this kind of stuff, but I think the way that they played it here is like incredibly respectful for the character and also the gender in which it, tries to champion. And I think that that's very special in a superhero movie. And again, that's what plays into this movie being really, really good is the message is so like I'm a guy, I'm a dude, I'm a 26-year-old white American dude. I look up to your Captain America as like these poster childs for like positivity and strength and unity. I can't even imagine being like a young girl and having this kind of like icon. Like it's so incredibly powerful. It's great. Yeah, no, it's great.
They handle the character really well. I think they handle this relationship really well, and that is essentially the core of a majority of the film.
Yeah, for sure.
This scene's really great. We don't really have to dive into the whole conversation, as you already mentioned. That's like kind of like the kicker there, but it's cute. It kind of like sets up how, and they'll talk a little bit more about like this is what people do when they don't have wars to fight. And Amazons are only trained to battle and to learn and all this other stuff. So she is experiencing a lot of this for the first time. So we jump over to General Ludendorff, and he's hanging out at his base, and they're like, Germany's about to lose the war, and in order to send a message to the rest of his troops, even though Germany's losing, he offs one of his guys before walking into a factory, which I thought was a bad form of leadership.
Yeah, 100%.
He essentially gets his Darth Vader shows up at the second Death Star scene, which is they're like, we need more time to get more work done, and he's just like, I'm here to put you back on schedule.
I want to throw it in here before we move too far past it, because I think this is an interesting section. Trivia piece for you. The discussion in the boat about the pleasures of the flesh was completely improvised between the two of them. Which is kind of funny. Like, and again, like, they found these two... Gal Gadot, who... I love her in Fast and the Furious. She's fucking rocks in those movies, dude. Yeah. But, like, Chris Pine, well-established actor. Gal Gadot, not necessarily that. But their chemistry that they have is fantastic. And the fact that they were able to improvise stuff like that is just crazy, too. Yeah, sorry, I should have thrown that in earlier. I forgot about that.
That's why they need him in the second one, definitely.
Yeah.
I also like when they're on the boat, though, and he's like, did you bring any of those with you? Because he was like, let me find out some more.
Yeah.
So Ludendorff's visiting Dr. Poison. She doesn't have her book, and he's like, you can still make something. And she's like, I don't know if I can. And then the wind rustles some papers to her, and she's like, oh, this formula might work. And she also developed these weird, like, strength gas capsules that Ludendorff can, like, crack in front of his nose, and he gets a good head high and kind of jacks him up a little bit. I thought that was
so weird.
I thought that was weird and unnecessary.
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. It's one of the aspects of this movie that I don't think is
these sub-villains
so extraneous.
Suck.
They do. They're bad. Like
they're not
again. Like, but the thing is that I like the design of Dr. Poison. I like the actress.
Cool. She's a good Wonder Woman villain too.
And I like the way that she's portrayed in this movie. But it's like they give neither of these people anything to work with, and they come across as just being like.
I don't like Danny. I don't like Danny's German accent as Ludendorff either. Oh, German victory, of course. He's like, I don't know. It's kind of cheesy. So then we transition back, and we find Diana waking up in the boat, and they've made it all the way to London. They got towed by a barge, and he's like, "Welcome to jolly old." I love this line. He's like, "Welcome to jolly old London." She's like, "It's hideous." And he's like,
"Yeah, it's not for everybody."
It's not for everybody.
That's the
Which
thing.
Is actually how I feel about London. So John has questions for Zach. Do you like London?
John has questions. All right, I love the segment. Yeah, I wish that we had more time to experience London while we were there because there's a lot of history there that I really like.
Sure.
I think we also saw downtown London and maybe not some of like the cool, not business district things in London.
Like Cockney.
Yeah, like some of the when I think of London, I think of the Cornetto trilogy. I think of like the Edgar Wright films, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, World's End. Sure. I feel like that would be cooler London to explore, like the neighborhood pub scene, like the music scene of London. I mean, the UK and London has some of my favorite musicians ever of all time, and there's a lot of history there. And so, yeah, maybe London was not one of the craziest cities and coolest cities that we went to, but I got the feeling like if we had more time to spend there, if I had more time to spend there, I'd find some stuff that I really liked.
So I've spent a grand total of like 4 days in London. haven't really had that great of a time. Not gonna lie. Maybe I do need to live there.
Remember those dank ass sandwiches we got from that place when we walked in the park and I tried to get you to touch a bird?
I do remember that. That was great. Yeah, the birds are fine in London.
Birds, 5 out of 10.
I had a bad restaurant experience where I was treated poorly because I was an American post-Donald Trump election. And so that'll always kind of haunt me a little bit. But that's besides the point. We don't want to put the English on blast. We love our friends from the UK. So happy Good Riddance Day is coming up pretty soon, July 4th. Moving on. All right. So they are in London now, and he has got to get the book to the War Council. Again, he's working with British intelligence on behalf of the American military. But Wonder Woman's walking around in her full costume covered up by this black robe. Like you mentioned before, it's a good fish out of water story. She's like looking at stuff. Men are like gawking at her, and he's like, guys, avert your eyes. And she freaks out over a baby because she's never seen one because they're either from the gods or molded from clay or something. It's just very comical. He's like trying to wrangle her, and there's like traffic and stuff, and you can see that he's just like very stressed out. And she's like, "Where's the war?" And he's like, "The Western Front's that way." And she's like, "Well, why aren't we going that way?" And he's like, "I'll take you afterwards." And she's just kind of like goading him on a little bit.
Yeah.
But she, does the hands on the hips thing, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Because she's dressed indecently, and this is a time before the 19th Amendment. So he's like, "We gotta go get you some clothes." So we go to the clothes store where we get to be introduced to his secretary, who's also a long-running Wonder Woman character, Etta Candy. She's like the Wonder Woman Steve Trevor Alfred.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I had a note in here too. The assistant gags, I remember when we saw the first trailer for Wonder Woman, and I was like, ooh, this looks bad. Mm-hmm. Like, this movie looks... And coming hot off of Suicide Squad, too. I was like, this movie's going to be shit. Mm-hmm. And I hated that assistant in the trailer. I thought, like, all of her lines are terrible. Mm-hmm. But in the movie, she works pretty well.
She works good.
Yeah.
She works really well. We get the great line where she's like, "What's a secretary?" She's like, "I do whatever he wants. I go where he goes." And she's like, "That
sounds like slavery." Yeah.
Which a lot of people that I think have jobs like that would agree. But yeah, so we get the montage of her trying to find armor at the clothes store, and it's just her trying on outfits. And she gets the inconspicuous Clark Kent style outfit, which is just dress him up in a suit and put glasses on, which is good. I like this, though, because of a fun fact. I don't know if this is one of your trivia facts, but Patty Jenkins, one of her favorite movies ever, is Superman 78. And she remembers seeing that with her dad, and she wanted to take a lot of inspiration in terms of tone from that movie and apply it to this movie. And that was supposed to be a nod to the Dick Donner Superman.
So we'll talk about it when we get to the scene. Mm-hmm. I know which scene is coming up. Mm-hmm. So this is the trivia from IMDb. The filmmakers cite the superhero film Superman 1978, Batman Begins 2005, the Indiana Jones adventure films, the wartime film Casablanca 1942, and the Disney adventure film The Little Mermaid as influences for the film's general tone.
Yeah, fish out of water. That makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll get to it. I'm sure that, I don't know.
Next scene.
Is it the next scene?
Yeah, you want to just cue it up?
So yeah, we'll cue it up. So we
have to talk about her walking out of the store holding the sword and the shield. Though,
yeah, it's kick ass. Yeah, she's like, excuse me,
through the turnstile. She's like trying to charge through it, and they give her weapons back to Etta. But yeah, they're walking down an aisle, and Steve feels followed, so they duck into an alleyway. And you can talk about the Superman version of the scene if you want, because you just watched the movie, right?
I did, yeah.
Why don't you go first?
Yeah, I have never seen Superman 1978.
The Superman movie.
The Superman movie. It's always been on my list, but through quarantine, I've been trying to watch new stuff I've never seen, not fall back on like rewatching old shit or doing whatever.
Who would do that?
Yeah, I know, right? Who would play The Last of Us 25,000 times in a row? And so Superman I was like, you know what? I'm in the mood for this. I had just seen Wonder Woman, and I didn't look up this trivia or whatever, and I didn't even think about it. But when that scene happens, I'm like, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. This is exactly the scene from 1978. It's the exact same scene.
Yeah.
And that makes that moment in Wonder Woman so much stronger to me
definitely.
as it paying homage to it. And
well, that's like my parents really liked that Superman movie. That was the first Superman movie I remember watching. It's actually one of the first comic book movies I watched. It's pretty kid friendly, I'm sure. As you went for the most part, I mean,
there's really nothing in it that's like offensive. There's no nudity, no sex.
Pacing-wise, it's hard to get through as like a 9-year-old.
Oh my god, dude, that movie.
But yeah, so like when we saw that in the theaters with my parents, Wonder Woman, they were like, this reminds me of Superman, and I was like, it worked. You know, if that's what Patty Jenkins' goal was, it worked. But yeah, I mean, in Superman, it's Lois and Clark get robbed, and the guy shoots at them, and Clark catches the bullet, you know, and he pretends to like fake out and stuff, and then they see the bullet afterwards.
He welds up the bullet, and he goes.
Christopher Reeves, man, what a goon. But in this one, we get
Mrs. Lane.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off air.
Yeah, don't need to do Superman.
Yeah, maybe another time. We could do all 4 of the original Batmans.
Quest for Peace, baby.
I've never seen Superman 3 or 4, and I don't intend to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Christopher Reeves in them, though.
I don't care. Superman 1 and 2 is all you need. And then you can skip ahead to Man of Steel. So I've heard those movies are atrocious. Anyway, in this version of this alleyway scene, they get cornered by German spies. And the guy shoots at Steve Trevor, and she deflects it with the bracelets, and she just goes to town on these guys. She's like deflecting bullets. It's a cool like overhead shot too that I really like of her like hitting the bullets from all angles.
Yeah, it's cool.
I thought that was a really cool angle. And she just dismantles everybody, and they lasso this one dude that they're gonna interrogate, but he cyanides himself.
Right. No, and again, like with the action sequences in this movie, like I think most of them are fine. This one stands out to me as being great because it's so small scale. You don't need to have every battle be this giant fucking crazy shit. It's like, unless you're Marvel and you can pull off the Rainbow Bridge fight scene with Hulk, Thor, Hela, and all these people, it's like, the smaller scale you get, the more intimate the action feels, a lot more I feel invested into it.
Sure.
And I think that this scene is fucking awesome from stem to stern, and just having watched 78 Superman, it makes it 10 times better. This is easily my number 2 moment in the entire movie.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah, it's great.
I love it.
And I think it's also interesting that we need to talk about, up to this point, we still haven't seen the Wonder Woman costume.
That's right.
So she's still wearing this Clark Kent disguise, but she loses the glasses pretty quickly on in this battle. So the nod goes away as soon as the scene's over.
Zach has questions.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman's arm bracelets. Does she have the power to deflect bullets and cause power explosions, or is it partially the armor or fully the armor?
It's the armor. It's her ability to use... It's the Amazon training to use the bracelets. They all have them.
So theoretically, her mother could have done the explosion thing.
No, sorry, that's her.
So the explosion thing is her.
Yeah.
Could she do that without the bracelets?
I don't think so. Because the way they make it seem in the DCEU and in a lot of other canon is that like it absorbs energy. It's like Black Panther's suit.
Okay.
And then she reverberates it. That's what she does against Doomsday in BVS too. So.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll see later on. She channels lightning with them too. So it's like...
Yeah, she rides the lightning.
The rules are a little ridiculous. For the most part, in a majority of Wonder Woman canon, it's just used to deflect things. Or she does a... Kind of like, you know how the Hulk slaps his hands together in a lot of versions to make like a wind blast?
Yeah.
She does that with the bracelets a lot. So
okay, gotcha.
It's more of just like a powerful blast. So.
Okay.
Her powers are the fact that she's a god. That's about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like super healing, strength. In some iterations,
yeah, I just meant specifically like the bullet reflecting.
I like how
the power blast
shows how it like absorbs it in these movies. You know what I mean? Like when it gets shot, it is like glows a little bit. I like that. I think that's cool. But yeah, I mean it's a good question. I don't have the answer for you though, fully at least. So they do get to the War Council, and we get introduced to Sir Patrick Morgan, who is played by
Professor Lupin
from Harry Potter. You'll look up that
I'll look at his name, yeah. Don't want to disrespect Professor Lupin.
And what's happening is they're talking about...
David Thewlis.
Thank you. They're trying to get the armistice to the Kaiser of Germany. And Diana and Steve walk in, and she distracts everybody enough time for him to say the word armistice, which is interesting.
Well, I like that they're like, what's a woman doing in it? They're like, what's a woman doing in this
there's
building?
a lot of good, like...
He's like, Diana,
yeah,
let's go.
Trying to get her out of there.
Yeah.
So they meet out in the hallway, and he's like, "I'm glad you guys came in." She was able to to get the room quiet enough for me to say one word, and they're like, we have Dr. Poison's book. We got to start decoding it as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. And so what we get is we get the General Council, which has... You're going to have to look up the actor's name, but he plays the old bear in Game of Thrones, and he's also in Braveheart. I think his name's like James Cosmo or something like that. But he plays like the lead general. Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, not off the top of my head.
That's a hard pass. But
do you know the character's name in the movie?
No, he's just one of the generals. He plays Jeor Mormont in Game of Thrones, though. Do you know who I'm talking about? The guy who gives Jon Snow his sword. I can never remember that actor's name. But anyway.
James Cosmo.
All right, I was right.
You're right. Yeah, James Cosmo is in
So he's the one that's very much like against Wonder Woman being in this council. And so they're trying to decipher the book, and Wonder Woman's instantly able to see that it's written in Ottoman and Sumerian. And he's like, a woman who knows Ottoman and Sumerian? Who is she? And Steve's like, she's a really good secretary. So,
sorry.
You got a fact?
Well, not a fact so much as that I was looking up the cast list for the movie because you mentioned James Cosmo, and so I was like looking where he was. He's, top billing. You know how they do with movies. The top billed person is usually the person that makes the most money, most important for the movie, and then it goes down from there. That guy, James Cosmo, is billed right below the actress that plays Diana at age 12. What a career.
Hey, he's still getting those checks, though.
Yeah, for sure. Residuals, baby. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had an interesting thing here.
Let me finish this scene and then bring it up.
Oh, it's really, really quick. It's really quick.
It's really quick, too.
Wonder Woman made just shy of $100 million in domestic video sales.
Oh.
So we don't have worldwide sales, but just in Blu-ray, DVD, VHS. In Blu-ray, DVD sales alone, streaming sales, it's made just shy of $100 million.
I have contributed to that. I own this movie.
Yeah. I used your account to watch it.
I know you did.
Aye.
But so what they decode from the book is that they are developing a new type of mustard gas that is hydrogen-based, which will break through gas masks, and they are going to test it out on the Western Front in Belgium. Mm-hmm. And Steve is like, we got to get out there, and they're like, no, we're gonna finish this armistice. We're not gonna keep this war going. And he shuts down, and he's like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. And Diana freaks out, and she's like, generals are supposed to be on the battle, and she's like scolding him. And I like how she walks up and gets really close to him.
Yeah, it's
because
cool.
You can tell that dude's like super uncomfortable by the fact that
like,
she's
oh
like,
no, a vagina.
She's like, yeah, and she's like pointing at him, and she's like, Gal Gadot's like taller than everybody in this movie, just about, which I think is really cool as well. But yeah, and so they get out into the hallway, and he's like, we're still gonna go, because she's Diana's scolding Steve, and she's like, you're lying, and he's like, I'm a spy, it's what I do. And he wraps the lasso around and be like, we're gonna go out there, I promise you, I would take you, we just need backup. And so we move on to our
he goes like, this is a bad idea, we're probably gonna die.
Yeah,
this is a bad idea.
Pretty good comedy. But yeah, we move to our crew assembly, which is where Zach is probably... Do you like the crew overall?
They're fine.
Yeah, I agree. Do you like this crew or the first Avenger crew better?
The Howling Commandos.
The Howling Commandos.
I don't know. They give more time to digest these characters, so I would probably say
I was bummed
in
the first Avenger that they don't give Dum Dum Dugan enough time.
I think you're gonna hate me, but First Avenger I think is still a better movie than this. Just in my personal opinion, but that's personal preferences aside. That's just because I've had 8 films of Steve Rogers at this point, and it's like I love that character so much, and I've had so much time to spend with him. Mm. Maybe in 6 years, when we've had 2 or 3 more Gal Gadot Wonder Woman movies, I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, the Howling Commandos were pretty fucking rad. Mm-hmm. But really, the first Avenger is the relationship between Cap and Bucky, and that's what makes it super special.
And this one's Steve and Diana.
And Steve and Diana, yeah. So it's like they're both really solid for that respect.
Yeah. I agree, though. I do think this crew is fleshed out more, but that being said, neither of the crews are ultimately that important. It's the 2 core parts of the crew.
The only thing, and I know we got to start speeding through this. Not speed. I mean, hey, we're having a fucking good-ass time, you know what I'm saying? But the thing I really like about Wonder Woman's crew, the assembling of the crew, is the scene around the campfire where it's like, was like, yeah, I had my land stolen by this man.
Yeah,
but
we're
it's
gonna
like
get to
he
that.
stole my land from me.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
I also like the crew assembly in the tavern because it feels a little more organic than the crew assembly in Captain America's. Because don't they find Dum Dum and those guys in like prison or something, and then they just like start hanging out with Steve?
No, they find him in a bar.
They find him in a bar too.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very
And
similar.
they do the almost exact thing where one
Yeah.
of them is singing at a piano.
Interesting.
These movies, dude, I'm telling you,
So,
it's like
so what you're telling me is they ripped off Steve Rogers from Steve Trevor,
and
but
then Wonder Woman ripped off
the crew assembly.
the first Avenger. Yeah.
It's snake eating the tail, man.
Yeah.
It's snake eating the tail. So I'm just gonna rip through the crew assembly real quick because the scene like it's goofy. We get introduced to like their backgrounds. It's a typical crew assembly, but we
Yeah.
have Sammy, who is the Arabic smooth talking type of con man.
Mm-hmm.
We have Charlie, who is played by Ewan Bremner from Trainspotting. He's Scottish. He's a sharpshooter.
Yeah, that's where he's from.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I recognized that guy, but honestly, least favorite.
Oh, he's
member of
the
the
worst
team.
crew member, definitely.
It's like,
Yeah,
get away from me, Mama!
The part where he's like where he freaks out and he's
Yeah,
like,
it's so
he's like,
awkward.
stop making a fuss, and he like walks away. I hate that part.
Well, it's just like it's weird because like I don't think he's a bad actor, but that's some badass acting right there. Mm-hmm. Just way too over the top.
It's weird. But like in this crew assembly, we see that Steve kind of already has a pre-existing relationship with them.
That's right.
He wants them to join the team pro bono. You know, Sammy's crushing on Wonder Woman hard. They have that cool back and forth though, where they speak different languages, which I like.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just to kind of give background on how the Amazons are extensive in their knowledge of the world, since they're the bridge between mankind's. But the most important part of it is eventually at the end, Patrick shows up, aka Professor. We're just gonna call him Lupin. Professor Lupin shows up and he gives them money.
Eat chocolate, Harry.
Yep, he's. Oh my goodness. He gives them the cash to fund their trip, and he's like, "I'm not gonna rat you out."
And he throws it in a fucking envelope, and
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
does. Yeah,
how
he
much
does.
money is that really in an envelope?
Like 20 pounds.
I mean, I get it's different times, inflation and shit, but it's like,
Yep.
really, is this enough to get 6 people across war borders and pay for flights
Get
and
them
shit?
from
It's
London to Belgium.
It's like Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
Steve Trevor buys Gal Gadot an ice cream cone, and the other guys are like, "Yo, what the fuck? That's 25% of our fucking war fund. What are we gonna do?"
So speaking of ice cream, that's my next note. It's just a bullet point. This is ice cream and the chief. I think it's a really cute scene though. They're walking through a train station, and they see lots of people that are heading out to different parts. Maybe they're going off to war. Maybe they're returning.
Yeah.
But this guy offers Diana ice cream, and Steve Trevor buys it for her, and she's like, "It's wonderful," which is like that's how everybody reacts to ice cream.
World's best cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's like Elf. It's exactly like Elf.
This is the point. I wrote down a note here saying I love the wartime vibes. Costume design, set design for the station is immaculate. Like this looks so good. I love all the packed in people, but you never lose sense of where the lead
The
characters
people
are.
reaching out the window.
Yeah, it looks perfect. Like this scene just feels like I don't know. It's almost like King's Cross, like in Harry Potter. I can't get Lupin out of my mind, but it's like
Eat some chocolate, Harry.
hey, chocolate, Harry. It'll make you feel better. I promise.
That's not what he said.
Expect the Patronum.
All right. Oh my goodness. So they take a train to a boat.
Yes, they do.
But the interesting thing about when they get off the train is they're walking across the bridge, and Wonder Woman starts to see, now that they're out of London, she sees the real carnage of the war. So there's like a lot of people that are heading to the train station because they're going to be no longer fit to be able to serve in the war. There's like a kid with the bandage on his head, people missing limbs.
Yeah.
It's pretty graphic, actually. Very sad. And she's like, it's awful. And Steve, the morality police of the crew, is like, that's why we're here. So they do take a boat. They meet up with Chief, who is a smuggler and businessman who profits off of selling supplies to people on both sides of the war. But before they really have their camp out, we have a little quick over to check in with our good friend General Ludendorff, Zach. And he wants them to launch this bomb in the front. And the rest of the German war council are like, nah, dude, we're signing the armistice. And so him and Dr. Poison just gas everybody. And they have one of the scenes that I hate the most, which is
This shit sucks.
He chucks a gas mask in there.
Yeah, this shit
And she's
sucks.
like, but the poison will get through the gas, and he's like, they don't know that, and they both cackle like it's like a cartoon, you know?
It's so stupid.
It's
it
like
doesn't,
a Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon or something.
It's for the movie's credit, it's the first moment in this movie where I'm like, why'd you show me this? Like, why? And you would think that they'd be more scared too of like the glass, like right there, and then the crack, and then some gas comes out that door, and you'd be like, let's get the fuck out of here. But they're like, oh,
they're cool with it.
They're cool with it.
So I have beef with this scene. Besides that, if the entire German war council got wiped out, don't you think the Kaiser would probably want to investigate if it was an inside job? And also, don't you think they would probably postpone the gala, considering that all of their other generals besides Ludendorff is now dead?
Yeah, Hundo P.
I don't think that's a very well thought plan by Mr. Ludendorff, but he's high on like bath salts or something right now, so I don't really know what's going on with him.
He's huffing the
blue glue.
He's doing Heisenberg shit here. Yeah. He's all up in that drug.
So I say we talk about this next camp out scene, and then we break right before the no man's land.
Okay,
good?
Let's do it. Yeah.
So then we flash back to our crew, and they meet up with the chief campfire. He's got a nice campfire.
Wait, did you say Chief Campfire? Like that's his name?
I am Chief
Campfire.
The Chief's Campfire.
Okay. His name is not Chief Campfire.
No, it's not. It's just Chief. And so we should probably talk about the cool parts of the scene and then the not cool part of the scene. But the cool part is we can see the camaraderie between these guys, and they're kind of starting to include Diana in it. Yes. I like the part where he's like English tea for the Germans, German beer for the British, and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
because they loot stuff. That's what the Chief Fire's main
Chief Campfire
business is.
How?
And they have that cool like cheers thing. I don't remember verbatim, but it's like, may we get what we want or something like that. And it's like, but may we never get what we deserve is how it ends, which I think is really cool. And they go bang and they clink. I think we should do that this weekend. But I should say it's not as good as the take what you can.
No. That's the best movie cheers.
That's the best movie toast ever.
Yeah, for sure.
We should do a Pirates of the Caribbean rewatch, dude. I'm serious.
Let's do it, baby.
Carly can sit in on that one too because she likes those movies.
Yeah, she does.
So it transitions into them sleeping, and Diana is having a one-on-one combo with Chief Campfire, and
I can't do this.
Just the Chief, and she's like talking to him. She's kind of like,
I gotta find out this guy's name.
The actor.
Well, his character's name.
It's just Chief. That's it.
No shit. They just called him the Chief.
It's kind of racist. I think. I don't know. I don't think they have much of a name beyond that. But
he was in The Revenant.
Oh, cool.
Good for him.
Anyway, this is a scene that you talked about earlier that's really cool, I think.
Yeah.
Which is where she's like, you just profiteer off of war. And he's like, the last war took everything from my people. And she's like, who took that from your people? And he's like, his people.
Yeah.
And he points to Steve.
So good.
And Steve is like passed out. And it's like, it's more exposure for Diana to learn about how the world works. And we get another scene like this with Sammy a little later on, which we'll get to.
Yeah. This is without a doubt, aside from action sequences, because we're about to get to the best one after the break, but this moment is without a doubt this is like the message moment of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm again, another theme in Radiovania history. I studied film for 4 or 5 years. I'm not an expert. They don't want me as writers. But this is a genius writing moment where you don't see this line coming. Like, you think like, oh, it's the oddball team. It's this guy from this place and this guy from this place. And, oh, yeah, they have the chief and he's hanging out here. But the fact that they take some time to also talk about how it's like, because Wonder Woman's whole thing is like she's fighting for the world. She doesn't look at things in like a black and white sense. She's looking at things in terms of like, how can I help? How can I do this? How can I be the hero? How can I be the savior for these people? And then there's this guy where it's like, yeah, his race is he's representative of like hate in my race, but yet we're sitting at the same campfire, sharing the same beer, sharing the same airspace, and it's like that is such a powerful moment. and it's so understated, and that's why it's so good, dude.
Yeah, and that's
I
why
love it.
I'm excited to talk about the next scene after the break, because this is it is the best part of the movie.
It is 100%.
That's why when we do favorite scene later on,
it's not even going to be a question.
Well, the question is going to be favorite scene besides the
okay, gotcha.
But yeah, so why don't we move to the break, because the next stuff is where we're gonna start to get a little tipsy and a little emotional, I think.
So like when they remember on like like Nickelodeon, they'd be like, or Disney Channel, it's like, we'll be right back after the break.
I just did the Mickey Mouse thing.
And we're back. He's drawing the Mickey Mouse.
Thanks for watching Disney Channel. All right, so the camp out, Chief Campfire's fire is over. So we get to the emotional crux of the movie.
Yes, we do.
The best part, I think we can both agree, hands down. So they are approaching the trench. This is, at the front. They finally reached it. They're on the British side. They're walking through the trench. They see horses and their buggies have crashed. People are being split from their families. It's really sad. The musical score starts to kick in at this time too. This lady and her child pulls Diana aside and starts speaking to her in a different language, and is talking about how the town's on the other side of the no man's land, and that the people are slaves and they're being submitted to the Germans' will, and she's like, you gotta help them.
Right.
So this is where this movie in particular, there are a lot of other movies that do this. I think Captain America does a really good job of this when Steve Trevor jumps on the grenade at the camp.
You said Steve Trevor.
Sorry, Steve Rogers. Thank you. In the first Avenger, it's hard to achieve this with this much emotion, I think, sometimes, but it's showing what true heroism is.
Yes.
So there's a lot of superhero movies now. We live in a world where a comic book movie before the pandemic would come out almost every 4 or 5 months.
Two a year from each major studio.
Mm-hmm, for the most part. And it's each one has to become a hero in their own way. Some of them, maybe it's by learning a hard lesson or something like that. But some of them are they just want to be there to do good. Captain America is one of these, Superman, Wonder Woman. But this movie, I think, handles it exceptionally well, especially within the last 10 years. Batman is a different egg, because I love the character as much as the next guy, but he's an asshole about stuff a lot of the times.
Yep.
The only time they really do it in the Nolan movies is probably when he flies the bomb off in The Dark Knight Rises, but he doesn't ever actually die during that, so I don't know. Anyway, that's besides the point. But what her argument is against Steve is that there are people in help. They're on the other side of that field. We can do this. Let's go. And he's like, we can't do this. This is the no man's land. It means no man can cross it. They've barely gained an inch. They've been dug in here over the last year. This is not what we're here to do. And then this is when we get the emotional turn. And she turns back. She puts the tiara on.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, but it's what I have been here to do. And this is when we get to see the Wonder Woman costume. She climbs out of the trench.
Again, before climbing out of the trench. The only thing I get it. Like, I think the scene is still great. It's a 10 out of 10 scene. It's the highlight moment of this entire movie. But I wish that there was a little of a heavier edit, but because Chris Pine's like, it's no man's land. That means no man can go out there. No man's land.
It's pretty ham-fisted, but I think that's the point.
Yeah, I know, but it is the point. But it's like I just kind of wish it was a little cut down, because the emotional thing is she turns around and she has the tiara, and then she flips off the cape. But then she also has another moment where she's on the ladder and she's like, "I'm gonna like."
This is what I'm here to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I like all of this, but I feel like it's just drawn out a little bit.
It's supposed to be, I think. I think it's a choice.
It's definitely a choice. Mm-hmm. I just think that if I were the editor, and I'm not, I would have. I think it would have been really, really cool for him saying it's no man's land. It means no man can go out there. To him turning around and she's not there. And then he looks up, Diana, and she's walking across. Like, I think sometimes the less you say, the more powerful it is. Sometimes, especially when you're in a visual.
I do think they still do a better job in this movie of visual storytelling. Notice it's taking us. I mean, distractions aside, it's taking us less time to progress through this plot than BVS, because there's less like spoken words. Like, there's a lot of visual storytelling in this movie, which is kind of the point of film, at least half of it. So I get what you're saying. I still think it works just fine, though.
And it's not even a nitpick. It's just like an observation.
Sure.
Just an observation. I still think the scene is 10 out of 10 great.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think it would have been really, really cool to have him say the line, turn around, turn back around. She's already gone. She doesn't need to explain to Chris Pine her motive. She's just going to fucking do it because she's Wonder Woman. She's going to save these people. She doesn't care what Chris Pine thinks. She's going to go save them.
She does, though, because she's the first man he's ever known. Like, she's ever known. This is her connection to humankind, to mankind, and this is part of them building their relationship. It's just an added piece to kind of continue to develop, like, he views things one way and she doesn't, and we're definitely going to get into that in the third act. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but the first time I saw this particular part, especially when she gets out of the trench, we get the full body shot of her walking towards everything. The bullets start to come slow-mo, and she kind of like knocks them out of the way and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool visually. Mm-hmm. But the more times that I watch it, the more it impacts me emotionally, to the point that it's very moving for me in a way that I did not expect. I think it's really cool when she's charging the field and the leader of the troops in the trench is like, don't go up there. He's like, don't do it. Like, that's stupid. Like, only stupid people go up there. So, like, she leads the charge. Steve notices she's taking all the fire, and he's like, let's go. And it's just him and his four guys, and they follow behind her. And then eventually she progresses further and takes out the machine gun nest that's been icing people probably for months. And then that's when the troops get out. And that part when the score kicks in and all the troops climb out is when it really gets to me. And I think it's really cool. And they're in the trench, and she keeps looking back at Steve to see, like, how, you know what I mean? Like, I noticed that a couple times in the scene, like, to see what he's doing. And, like, I think it's important for her that he's, like, following behind her. So, like, she checks back on him, and he's, like, blasting people with a shotgun. And she just, like, looks
at... The most efficient war weapon.
Yeah, seriously. And she looks at the church steeple, and she's like, Steve, let's go. And she just, like, freaking jumps over there.
Woo!
And I just...
right into the wall.
I think it would be too Marvel-y if they flashed back to him, and he's just like, oh, come on, you're getting so far away. But I do think that part makes me laugh a little bit. It's just, like, she's going so fast. But yeah, so she leads the charge and changes the course of this battle that's been going on for years and probably cost a lot of human lives. And in 2 minutes, she changes the course of things.
So some trivia for you here, and this is going to be a little bit of discussion.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this.
The No Man's Land sequence was originally supposed to be cut from the movie. It initially caused some confusion for people on the film's creative team. They thought it was meant to be an action sequence and didn't understand how it could work without Diana fighting a villain. Patty Jenkins insisted that the scene was a pivotal dramatic moment, underscoring Diana's self-affirmation and her resolution. And so she had to fight for that scene being included into the final edit of the film. Can you fucking imagine this movie without that scene?
It would still be fun, but it wouldn't be as good.
No,
it wouldn't be as memorable, I don't think, either.
This is one of those instances where it's like, and I know I'm going to get flack for this. Not that we have 1 million followers, but...
You gotta be careful what you say, though.
I know.
This stuff is permanent.
So... I would pay $10 in admission to see the moment in Rise of Skywalker where Rey puts the lightsaber behind her back and then Kylo pulls it out and then fucks up the rest of the Knights of Ren. Because that payoff is so good. Back in 2017, if you would have asked me, would you pay $10 ticket admission to watch the No Man's Land from beginning to end in the big screen? I'd say, yeah, I probably would. Because that scene is so emotionally impactful. Without this scene in that movie, it's like, I don't know, it's a fine movie. It's still a good movie at the very least, but it's like, it boggles my mind that any executive at and this is why we're doing this podcast.
Yeah, Warner Brothers does not have a great track.
Warner Brothers does not fucking understand the idea of creative vision. If Patty Jenkins, the first female to direct a superhero movie, says that this is an important scene, you go, okay, you do that scene, and because we trust you. But the fact that she had to fight for this scene to be in the movie is like, it's mind-boggling to say the least, and it makes me think so little of the people in charge of this ship.
I'm sure the people that wanted to can that got fired pretty soon afterwards. But who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah,
Because they went on to direct Justice League.
Well, we don't have to worry about that yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. But so we get the cool Wonder Woman music from BVS as she storms this town.
It's the first time it plays, too, which is pretty cool.
Well, they've had, like, other iterations of it during her training montages, but it's, like, acoustic and, like, different. But, yeah, this is the first time, like, the one that shows up kicks in.
And it's fucking rad, dude.
It's so rad.
It's like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so,
let's go.
They storm the town, and, like, she's busting through walls and running on roofs, and she's wrecking these Germans, and Steve and the Chief and other people are kind of following behind and taking things out. One of the things I really like about this is the part where her and Steve are in the courtyard, and they kind of do like a back-to-back spin shot of them just like wrecking people when she's just using the lasso of truth and he's using the shotgun, and they're just like, she like grabs people and like judo kicks them away and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was like, this is rad when I saw it in the theaters, and I like her grabbing the tank and just flipping it over. Like, the point of the No Man's Land for our characters is up until this point, Steve Trevor is along for the ride. He needed her to get away from the island. He likes her, obviously, but he doesn't believe her. And he still doesn't really believe her even after this scene, but seeing her in action is an eye-opening experience for all of them. To be like, we've kind of just been joking around about this lady behind her back, but like, she's a real deal. Like, she can fight, and she cares, and like, wants to make a difference.
Gal Gadot trained for 9 months to gain 17 pounds of pure muscle for the film. Yeah, I know, right? Clap for her.
It's awesome.
She looked fucking great.
She's Wonder Woman, man.
Yeah, when she pulls off the cloak and you see her in the Wonder Woman garb, you're like, oh my god, I wish I looked even a quarter as good as that.
Yeah, she fab out there.
She fab.
So they liberate this town of Veld,
Yep.
I think is what it's called. And I like the scene afterwards, which is just music. It's her walking through the crowd, and she's like shaking hands with people and smiling. And like, I remember when I saw this with my mama, I took her to the Lebanon Theater to see this movie.
No, Sticky Floor.
Mm-hmm. Old Sticky Floor. And she really liked this scene. She was like, she's just like, oh, look at how happy she is. My mama's from Mississippi, by the way. But this also reminded me of like Dick Donner Superman a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like taking time to meet the civilians afterwards. Because it's nice that they are as receptive to her, because she did smash their church to take out that sniper. So, but then this is where they get the group photo, and the guy takes a picture of the 5 of them. So that's where the photo.
The famous photo,
the famous
baby.
Photo. The Lex Luthor stolen, Bruce Wayne returning, flash drive icon inducing photo. Mm-hmm. So we get to Diana and Steve are on the phone with Etta, who is working out of Patrick Morgan's office, and he's like, we find out that the intelligence has gathered there's a gala where the German High Command is going to be, and that they should break into it, and Patrick's like, I don't think you should do this. You are under no circumstances supposed to go. Wonder Woman convinces Steve, more or less, that she believes Ludendorff is Ares in the flesh. And he's like, don't go. And then they hang up on him. And they are going to mobilize a plan to go to this gala and try to... Steve wants to go to stop the gas production. Mm-hmm. Diana wants to go to slay Ares with the God Killer. Then we flash forward to nighttime, and Sammy is, delivering drinks to people, and they're having a good time. We get, my note says dancing and boning. So Diana and Steve have this really great scene of them dancing in the courtyard, and she's asking him, like, is this what people do when there are no wars to fight? And he's like, yeah, I think so. They make their lovers breakfast, they read the paper, go to work, and you can just tell this is something that full-time war, which this generation of people and the generation of people in World War II, that's all they know. So the PTSD aspect of this is also something that would be hard I mean, spoilers, if Steve were to get home after World War One, I think he would have a lot of things to have to deal with. But Diana makes him feel comfortable, which I think is really adorable. And it starts to snow, and we get the Scottish guys singing, and they're talking about how he hasn't heard him sing in a long time. And then
I like that moment.
Yeah,
It's a cool moment.
It is it's a cool moment. And then Diana and Steve, they go up, and you know. And then we get to the morning, and this is when they get the crew back together, and he's like, we're out of money, and the crew's like, we're in it till the end. And I think this was after the fight, so this would have been the day before, but I forgot to mention another chief-like scene was Diana talking to Sammy, and he's like, I wanted to be an actor, but I'm the wrong color, and in this world, you know, I'm not able to be the profession I want to be. So everyone is fighting their own battles just like you are, which I think is a really important theme of this movie.
For sure.
And we're definitely going to talk about it when we get to the monologue at the end, which I think is really important. Zach just cracked open a seltzer.
Crispy boy.
Like Wonder Woman cracked over those Germans' heads.
If you listen closely, you can hear the sound of Wonder Woman slaying the foes.
So let's get to this gala, Zach.
Yeah, the gala. The gala. We're gonna go to the gala.
This is where I think you're definitely right. This is where the movie begins to get less.
Carly's like trying to not laugh in the background.
It's starting to get less, like strongly put together.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
the gala is the first scene in this movie where I'm like
beginning to kind of get a little bit off the rails to an extent.
So the gala.
Who are you? And what have you done with Zach?
The gala, not bad. It's not a bad scene, but it's also kind of like, she's hiding a sword behind her fucking back.
I don't get how she got away with it.
You don't know how she got away with it. This guy's asking her to dance. It's also contrived. It's like, why would you even need to go inside in the first place? Mm-hmm. I don't know. You're right. This is the first scene where I'm like,
Yeah.
Don't love how everything is set up here.
So a couple beats to just break down real quick is Steve has a German outfit. He's going to pretend to be an officer to get in there.
Right.
I think it's interesting when they're hiding in the bushes watching the castle and the chief just disappears and then he shows up with the car and they're like, where did that come from? He's like, there's a whole field of them over there. I want to see the scene of him
jacking a car. Yeah, right, exactly.
Car and somebody potentially seeing him. But yeah, so they get into the gala. Steve doesn't want Diana to go in. He's like, you can't go into German high command and just kill people. Like, you're going to blow our cover. She steals some woman's dress anyway and also breaks in. So Steve's in there. Diana's in there. Steve's trying to talk to Dr. Poison. He's like seducing her to get her to take him to the lab.
In like the most unbelievable scene ever. It's like,
weird.
If you were Dr. Poison, you're not an unattractive woman, but you're also a woman with her face disfigured and wearing like a plague era mask. It's like, would you ever for a second believe that this guy is actually trying to... and again...
Chris Pine's pretty charming. I don't know.
Chris Pine is very charming.
I think he could convince you. Yeah. I think if you were in Dr. Poison's case, you'd be ready to show him
like
all of your laboratories.
If I was missing a nipple and Chris Pine was trying to seduce me, I'd be like, but you know what, Chris Pine, I don't have a nipple.
Why are you telling him that?
I don't know.
Well, anyway,
I gotta be honest.
His
plan
to seduce Dr. Poison goes by the wayside because Diana shows up and obviously distracts his gaze. Dr. Poison's like, well, you clearly seem distracted. Diana's like going to kill fucking Ludendorff. She's like,
she's about to slice some throats.
This dude's Ares, and I'm about to cut his head off in the middle of a gala. They have a little dance. It's very weird, where they're just like talking about Greek philosophy and stuff like that, and it's. They're trying to make it seem like he might be Ares still to the audience, which we'll find out later that he isn't.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
But they're just like dancing around a little bit, and then he walks away, and she's about to like throw the sword into his back, and Steve comes out and stops her. And that's when they get into a fight, and she chases after Ludendorff, and they get outside, and they see that they are demonstrating their gas weapons test. They bomb the village of Veld, which is close enough by, the one that they had just liberated, and the mustard gas wipes everybody out. And it's a very sad scene. Diana races back there, and it's like Luke going home to find his aunt and uncle in ruins. Steve chases after her, and she blames him a little bit for stopping her, and she's like, I now realize that Ares has control over all of man, so like I can't trust you either. I have to do this on my own. And then we get the one part that I think is really weird where he's like, Diana, that smoke, that's the chief. You gotta go there, Diana. Go, go, go. And she like takes off. I thought that was really weird.
Yeah,
it's just a little strange, but it's fine.
Well, it cuts from this to the scene of her.
They do set it up where he's like, go track Ludendorff. I'm gonna go get Diana. But
this is the scene of her running through the woods, right?
Yeah, on the horse.
This is the first footage ever shown of this movie, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's like
she's on horseback in the Belgian forest, and she's like breaking through German checkpoints and stuff like that. And she gets to the compound, which we will find out is where this third act will take place. And right. Ludendorff is in a watchtower, and she gets up there pretty easily. And they have a weird kerfuffle because he's still taking those bath salts. And he is able to go toe-to-toe with her a little bit, which I thought was weird. And the worst part is the slow motion of him turning around. He's like, ah! You know what I'm talking about? And his eyes are really wide.
Yeah, right.
I don't like that much.
No.
But eventually, the point of this is that she eventually gets the best of him, and she's like, Ares, I sentence you to die. And then she like stabs him and kills him.
Yeah, this whole fight scene is like...
It's weird.
It's weird. It's not... Again, this is the this to me is like the third act.
Mm-hmm.
The gala is whatever. It's got some like... why did you show me that moments? But like this is the real beginning of like... Do we need this? I know countless people have pointed this out before. Like, I'm not the first person to point this out. Podcasts all over the world reviewed Wonder Woman and point this out. But there's the weird shot, and I feel like we need to talk about it. It's the weird shot of Wonder Woman is there. She defeats the guy, and she doesn't have her sword. So there's an entire cut of her jumping up to get the sword and then jumping back down.
That's when actual Ares shows up.
But it's like, why did we need to see that? Why are we really dumb enough to not assume that she would go up and get her sword? That they show that cut of her jumping up, and then she gets the sword and jumps back down in the same exact position as she was beforehand.
Yeah, I guess like
it's really
the
bizarre.
Reasoning is that she shoved it through an entire roof and thought the war was over afterwards, so she just kind of left it there. Because what happens is Steve shows up. So she kills Ludendorff, and she sees that the production of the gas bombs don't stop. Steve and the crew gets up there. And I actually do like this conversation that they have, which she's like, I killed Ares and it didn't stop. And he's like, well, maybe that's just not what it's about. And it's like, we still have a job to do here. And she's like, no, you know.
Well, he's trying to be like, maybe there's not an Ares, maybe there's not like an all-ending thing. And it's like what you're thinking of the whole time. It's like, yeah. And this will get to one of my biggest criticisms of the movie, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But this whole scene is like, I love this moment. Because it's Chris Pine being like, he wants to say so bad, there is no Ares, people are going to be evil no matter what, and people are going to fight. But he's like trying to dance around it. He doesn't want to insult her, and he doesn't want to belittle her opinions on the world, because she's obviously an Amazonian god. She knows what the fuck is up. But at the same time, it's like, there is no Ares. There's no person that's deciding, you know, who is fighting who.
Yeah.
And we'll get to the reason why I think this is bad.
Okay. But I do like this moment.
I like this moment a lot.
And I like the couple of the lines that I really enjoy is where, because this is Chris Pine's acting his freaking heart out.
Yeah, he's giving it everything he's got.
And he's just like, you know, Ares or no Ares, if you want this war to stop, if you truly want it to stop, then like, this is our time. We can do this. And she's like, this is not my fault. Like, none of this is. And he's like, but maybe I am at fault. Like, maybe humans are at fault. And he's like, we do horrible things to each other. He's like, but it's not about what they deserve. It's about what you believe, which is something that she will say in a couple minutes. But yeah, it's really good. again, and that's the reason why the only true part of this third act is just the chemistry between the two of them.
100%.
Because once we get into the fight with Ares, it's when the movie starts to lose its emotional weight. But anything that references or has to do with the two of them interacting is still the strongest part of the movie.
Yep.
And that's why, like, I don't like the third act compared to the rest of the movie, but I enjoy these parts quite a bit. And I get the message they're going for, but I just don't. The delivery is off, and we'll get to that right about now. So,
right about now.
So Steve is like, I guess you're not going to help, and he takes off and he goes with the crew. And then Diana's just like watching from the tower, and we hear like a thing falls in the background. She turns around, and who's there, Zach? Professor Lupin.
There he is.
He's
like,
standing
eat
around.
Chocolate. You should eat some chocolate. You'll feel better.
Yeah, but the reveal, he never says, I am Ares. Diana's the one that's like, you or him. But you know what he says to reveal that he's the true Ares? Do you remember? He just goes, you're right, they don't deserve our help. Which I was like, I don't know if I think this is a little too ambiguous. They do get on the nose later, but...
Okay.
So we get this whole pitch where he starts talking about how humans, they are horrible to each other, and that's what he was trying to show his father and the rest of the gods, and they never believed him. She tries to stab him with the God Killer sword after she retrieves it, like you mentioned. It breaks, and she's upset. She's like, the God Killer, and then we find out that this is not the God Killer. You are. he blows the dust out of his head. Bookie, 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 bookie.
Oh, you're the God Killer.
Yeah.
And she goes, what? And she puts her face on her hands. And
that's not what happens. But while this is happening, the rest of the crew is doing reconnaissance while wearing gas masks. Good cover, by the way. And we find out that the plane has a timer. It's going to London. The bomb's going to go off regardless at the end of the timer. They can't land it anywhere. They have to figure out a way to blow it up. Diana and Ares struggle against each other about the morality of humans. Yep. He tries to tempt her. She says no. And then that's when they fight it out. And so he blows up the tower and everything goes to hell. And they're like, what the hell is going on? And if Steve's like, if that's who I think it is, then we don't have much time left. He's like, so is the plane, the bomb's flammable? And Chief, the scientist of the group, goes, it's hydrogen, it's flammable. And he's like, all right, cool. And he like cocks the gun and he's going to go for it. But Diana's having this battle with Ares. And at first, I think this is where, the battle as a whole isn't the best. This is where it works better, though, is before he gets the crazy CGI armor. What do you think? Because, like, when he's just a god and he just looks like Professor Lupin, I think it makes a little bit more sense than when he gets, like, the shambled metal armor that he'll get in a minute.
This whole scene, this whole ending thing to me is just, like, it all melds together.
But
like,
why?
I don't know.
It meld together?
I don't feel anything. I like the Wonder Woman storyline I like Wonder Woman's, her social fight. I like Wonder Woman's message. I like Chris Pine's, his determination.
Mm-hmm.
I like the group's mentality here, but, like, Ares is a character we've only known as, like, oh, he's Ares. He's the god of war. He likes war. He likes fighting. He likes fucking putting up his fists and fighting. Mm-hmm. And so this last scene, there's really no tension between Ares and Wonder Woman. Like, I don't feel like there's, like...
Well, they're the only two gods left. He's trying to get her on his side.
Except for all the gods at the Themyscira.
Well... She's more god than anyone because she's a child of Zeus. She's a demigod.
Weren't they all created by Zeus?
They're created by Zeus, but they're not all godlike powers.
But they all seem to have the same powers.
The way that she is. They all have like their stamina and their invulnerability and immortality when they're on the island and all that stuff. But she's different. Like her mom says it earlier. Like, you're not an Amazon like the rest of us because she's partially created by Zeus. So she's different. She's a god in the same level playing field as Ares is, and they're the last two ones. And he's trying to... The reason why... I mean, he talks about it. The reason why he didn't kill her early on to stop his plan, because he wants the war to go on forever, is because he wants her to get the chance to see that men are corruptible and that they're evil. And this is why she needs to be able to join his side, because he's been trying to prove this for centuries to all of the gods, that Zeus's creation is flawed. And this is a big morality topic that I think we could talk about a little bit here, but like, humans they're flawed. We make a lot of fucking mistakes. We really do. And that's what he's trying to use that lesson as a way to get her to join him to continue to torture the human race, because he does not believe that mankind is worthy of the gods' attention or is worthy of their protection. He doesn't think that they are a fit creation. He's doing all of this despite his father, who's already dead. He killed him. But the creation exists on, and that is Zeus's legacy. Makes sense a little bit.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I just don't think that was made apparent in the movie.
He says all that stuff, though. So is it the CGI that really bothers you, or is that what it is? Because, like, I think it's pretty abundantly clear, because that's what they talk the whole fight. I mean...
I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that, like, I don't know. I just...
Is the movie getting too long for you?
No, I don't know, dude. What do you want? What do you want from me? What do you want from me? You trying to attack me?
No, I'm not trying to attack you. I just want you to back up your claims.
No,
You're saying that the third act doesn't hold up because they don't make it abundantly clear, but I think they make it pretty clear what he's trying to do as the villain. He's the only good villain in the movie. There are 3 villains in the movie, and he's the only one that actually is fleshed out.
Well, the thing is that I'd be much more... I'm much more interested in Dr. Poison and trying to be like this... Because it sets itself up to be more real. I don't like that Ares is just this all-powerful, crazy fucking thing, and that he just happens to... Now, of all times, he could have killed Wonder Woman whenever he wanted, but he wants to just let this war get bigger because that's what gets his dick hard.
Yeah.
I just don't dig it.
I mean, this is just like, this is mythology at its core, is that Ares does not like humans. He doesn't think that form of creation deserves any respect because he's a god. Why should he care? You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you're asking for a reason why I don't like the third act.
I mean, you can not like something just because you don't like it. I think, in my opinion, it's clear what he wants. It's just his line deliveries are weird. It's very weird.
To me, it's not clear. I mean, to me, it's not. You explaining it, yeah, that's clear. But just based on the dialogue in the movie, he's like, it's like, yeah, I guess I get the fact that he's the god of war. Mm-hmm. He wants this war to continue raging, and that's how he gets his kicks. Like a woman in high heels stepping on his scrotum.
Okay.
But to me, that doesn't make it good. Just because I understand his intentions, or I can like infer his intentions, doesn't make him... And I love Lupin. All credit to Lupin. That guy's the guy's a great actor.
Yeah.
But I don't feel anything to work... And a good analog... Right. Even though Captain America, the First Avenger, isn't like... It's definitely mid to mid-low tier Marvel movies. I love it. I know I'm not everybody. But Red Skull in that movie has an interesting sort of like crusade.
Okay.
And
what?
Which is... He's Nazi.
Is that interesting, or is it he's just a Nazi?
He's also searching for like power and stuff,
like a Nazi would.
Sure,
yeah, because that's how he gets his kicks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
No, you gotta finish it up. You're good.
I don't even remember where we were starting from.
Red Skull, Captain America, has an interesting motivation, is what you were going for.
Yeah, I guess. What's like. I don't know, you're given time to, like, you're given time for this villain to sort of, like, explain himself. In
Captain America.
And inject him, yes, in Captain America. And inject himself into the world. So when Lupin shows up at the end of this movie and just suddenly does the twist, and he's this guy, for whatever reason, my brain just always goes, oh, it's him. He's here to do evil thing, evil plot, and I don't really think anything past it. But again, we could argue about this.
So this reminds me a lot of the Iron Man 3 type deal, where we are led to believe that this one person is the villain the whole time, and at the end we get the reveal that it's not, and then they have to hastily back up their motivations. I think it's very similar. In Iron Man 3, we think Ben Kingsley's the Mandarin the whole time, and then we get to the last half hour of the film and we find out it's Guy Pearce. Spoilers. And at that point, maybe it's not maybe you're right. Maybe it's just not enough exposure with that actual person as the villain. But I think this brings up an interesting thing that we could talk about real quick before we talk about the Steve Trevor ending part of the story, which is DC, these movies, in addition to having a lot of logistical problems, acting, writing, they have a huge villain problem. Where if you had to rank the villains based on the ones that are there, like it's still probably like Zod, and then maybe Mark Strong in Shazam.
We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, I'd say Mark Strong is definitely
and
up there.
And then maybe Ares.
Well, somewhere I would say
like he's still top 3, which is sad.
Ewan McGregor in Birds of Prey is definitely number 1. It's definitely at least number 2. Strong case for number 1.
I'm excited to see that. But yeah, they have a huge villain problem. But that being said, this isn't the most far-fetched villain plan that they've had. Lex Luthor, Amanda Waller, the Joker, all these, like, there are some really shitty villains in this film franchise.
No, I am not trying, John. I'm not trying to say that this is as bad as
No, I know you're not.
Amanda Waller or Lex Luthor. Yeah. I'm just saying that I don't like. The best villain is like a Thanos. He feels like he is the hero of his own story. Mm-hmm. And what I don't like about this sudden thing of Ares is that you ultimately undercut the General and Dr. Poison, who were being set up to be the big villains, mm-hmm. and they're just like, nope, they're dead. They're undercut.
It's a Shyamalan twist.
Surprise! Here's this fucking dude that you've seen for the whole movie, and he's the villain. But it's like, okay, why do I care? That's the big thing for me.
So the twist doesn't land.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
But his motivations make sense as the God of War.
I mean, you explaining it to me now makes sense, but watching
That's what he explains in the movie.
No, he does not.
I watched it last night.
He does not. He does not say as in depth as what you just told me. I promise you. We can go back and watch it right now. Drink bet.
Oh my god. All right. Well, we're gonna continue on with this.
Yeah.
So while this battle is happening, he eventually throws Wonder Woman across the field, and as Steve is running to the plane, he talks to her. I do like this scene because she can't hear.
Yeah, it's cool.
She's just had a huge blast.
It's really cool.
He's talking to her, and it's just like, and she's like, what?
What?
I can't understand what you're saying.
What are you saying?
And he puts the watch in her hand, and he runs off. And I love this shot because the camera is focused on Chris Pine. He's running towards the plane, and you just, in the background, you just hear her calling, like, Steve, like, where are you going? He eventually gets on the plane, takes control of the plane. His plan is to just take it up in the sky and shoot it, which he does. By the time he's up in the sky and he's able to shoot it, I like that part because he gets up there and he kind of chuckles to himself and he's like he is coming to terms with his fate, but he's excited about it because he knows that he is doing something right. And this part's pretty sad to me because this is where Ares has wrapped Wonder Woman up in the metal tank wheel or something like that. So he's forcing her to watch, and she looks up as the plane explodes, and he's using this torture as a way to essentially he's trying to convert her to the dark side. So she goes ape shit, and I hate this scene, but it's really bad CG where she's working through everybody, and he's like, "Yes, Diana, yes." It's like the Emperor, but it's worse.
Yeah, bad.
I don't like that at all. By this point, he has armor that looks like the George Perez Ares, but it's not as well put together. It gets more CG, and it kind of starts to remind us a little bit of a typical DC movie villain, which is a CGI cocked full villain-esque part. But we have her fighting all these people, and Ares kind of like brings the Batman Begins thing to the test, where it's like, you need to kill this one person. You know what I mean? Ra's al Ghul puts that one person in front of Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And it's like, this person is the perfect example of the evil that humanity is. You should slay her. She's horrible. She's created weapons to destroy thousands of lives. This is what humans deserve. And so she has like this truck that she's about to smash Dr. Poison with. And that's when she gets, I don't know how this works, but it works emotionally. But she gets a flashback to the conversation she had with Steve, where she couldn't process the words earlier, but now she can. And what we find out is that I like this quite a bit. He says, I can save today, but you can save the world. So he's going to sacrifice himself, because she's like, I can do this. And he's like, no, you have bigger things to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. My father said I can do nothing, or I can do something. This is my something. And he tells her that he loves her, and he palms the watch in. And that's what she realizes, that, she didn't believe in mankind, especially after she killed Ludendorff and saw that they were still fighting. But she does now, because she knows that some of them have strong beliefs, and that is that at its core, that is what humanity, which is a flawed species, it's what they believe in that defines them, and what they believe in that can change how they interact with people. So she kind of quotes Steve earlier. She says, it's not about deserve, it's about what you believe, and I'm going to choose to believe in love. And then we get the worst line delivery of the movie, which is, then I will destroy you. and he revs up a bolt of lightning, and he throws it at her, and she catches it Yoda Dooku style in the bracelets, and she's like charging it. And I do like how she's charging. I think that's really cool. And she's like, goodbye, brother. And she like pops up, blasts him, and fries Ares. My note says Ares gets did in Emperor Palpatine style, which is take the lightning back to them from Rise of Skywalker. But I am all the Jedi. Yeah, so that's Sith. So he gets destroyed. She kind of floats down. The sun begins to rise, and just like she had foreseen, and how most of the Ares stories works in the comics and the cartoons, as soon as his presence is gone, people's animosity and violence start to disappear. And we start to see, people hugging each other, and the war is over, and they flash to London.
And this is a problem I have.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm sure, I don't know, you have to understand this as well. You got to.
I don't know what your problem is, so you tell me it first. And then
my problem is that there's a scene with her and Ludendorff, and she kills him, and then she's like, waiting for the moment where the war stops, and all these people continue to do on war shit and doing battle shit. They're loading up shit. They're getting ready to fire shit. They're gonna kill people and shit.
Okay.
And so, but then she's like, oh, she has that moment of realization where she's like, this is gonna continue even without Ares. Like, Ares isn't the reason why people are fighting. It's just that people are inherently going to fight. And I thought that moment was really awesome and super cool. But then at the end of this, when she kills Ares, people are like shaking hands and hanging out. And it's like, but that's not how the world works. That's not how anything works. And, and it's weird to me that it's like...
Technically, those German soldiers would have just continued to shoot people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's an emotional play of the movie, but it doesn't make sense.
It works because it works within the context of the movie, but like I was saying,
but the monologue at the end of the film is what we know. This is the end of her journey. This whole movie is her justifying why she walked away from mankind for a little bit, but not completely walking away, by understanding that they are flawed and they need her assistance. Which is, so what happens is they're celebrating in London, and she and the crew are gathered, and they see the picture of Steve, and it's just, people celebrating the end of the war, but it comes at a cost. as things always do. But I like this monologue at the end, and I think it would be cool if we talked about it a little bit, because
Sure.
we don't really get too political on the show. But I do think this is a cool kind of look at humans and people as a whole. So the last thing that she says is, I used to want to save the world, to end war and bring peace to mankind. But then I glimpsed the darkness that lives within their light. I learned that inside every one of them, there will always be both. The choice each must make for themselves, something that no hero will ever defeat. I've touched the darkness that lives between the light, her killing Ludendorff, and Ares. Seen the worst of the world and the best. Seen the terrible things men do to each other in the name of hatred, and the lengths they will go for love. Now I know only love can save this world, so I will stay, I will fight, and I will give for the world I know can be. This is my mission now and forever. I think it's really interesting that by the end of the movie, it's kind of melancholy that she goes from being this doe-eyed explorer of the earth and learning about mankind to coming to the realization that there is light and darkness inside every person. And at various times, those things can come out, as we have seen in the past couple weeks here. And it's the continual faith, I think, in what you believe in terms of what is good and what is right and what is just, that is important to keep in mind. And I thought that was a really good thing. The fact that that happened 3 years ago, literally yesterday, I thought was pretty moving for me, at least.
Yeah, this movie has something to say, and that's something that, you know, again, when we take into critical analysis, because we're critics, you know, whether we like it or not, we're trying to review these movies. That's something that needs to be taken into consideration, no matter how many nitpicks I have, no matter how many goofy things that there might be with these movies. One thing that Wonder Woman gets right is that it has a conscience, and it has something to say. And that, to me, gets a lot of points. Like, Infinity War and Endgame might be some of the best films ever made because they're so huge in scope, and they're these grand spectacles. But, you know, they aren't saying much. They're telling a really fascinating story, but they aren't, like... You don't walk away from those movies thinking, like, here's how I need to make my life better. And the really cool thing about Wonder Woman is that it tries its absolute fucking best to make you leave the theater and say, like, I need to think about things maybe a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the powerfulness of the movie. And again, when I say that the third act falls apart, I'm purely talking about the action and what is happening on screen. Mm-hmm. The end of the movie, I think, is a great... Again, like you just read the quote. The send-off is fabulous. I think where they end the character is great. It's all very, very good. And I have my problems with the structure of the movie, but yeah, if that quote doesn't hit hard, I don't know what would, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, it's a sad story. It's she experiences from the perspective of World War I tragic loss and the discovery that mankind is not as easily saved as she thought it was, and that it's not going to be something that just by defeating one god of war that you can change. It's a never-ending battle.
Right.
And that's something that Superman brings up in the books a lot, is he calls it the never-ending battle, or Jonathan Kent refers to it that way. It takes work, and that's something that true heroes, like she says, they can't just defeat it; they have to continue to work on it. And the thing that we talked about this a long time ago, but the thing that's really cool about Wonder Woman is it's a movie that if the DCEU didn't exist tomorrow, it could still hold up on its own out of context, because there are no outside references besides the fact that she emails Bruce Wayne at the end. But technically Bruce Wayne's been played by like 6 actors, so it could be any one of those
I
versions.
think this movie would be stronger if the DCEU didn't exist.
Yeah, I think it would too.
And that's the weird thing about this, right?
It's
I think that's the only time in history I will ever say that.
I'm excited for 84, though. I'm very excited. Let's see it. All right, you ready for these questions?
Oh boy, hit me with it, John Parker.
All right, so first question. Who is the winner of the movie? By the way, it took us like 2 hours to get through that plot, so I think we should give ourselves a pat on the back. We got really distracted. All right.
Give it to me.
Zach is slapping his own butt, just for people to know.
I'm shaking my own head.
Thank you, Carly.
All right, who's the winner?
The winner. So this is the person that maybe gets the most fame coming out of the movie. They maybe are the most successful. They are, when you walk out of the theater, you're like, this person won the movie. They crushed it.
Is there any argument?
There is not.
It's Gal Gadot.
It's Gal Gadot. Yeah, she's Wonder Woman now, for a lot of people and for a long time. This is a really cool conversation. I think there's very few actors that I think can really embody a character to the point that people are going to have a hard time separating them from the actor. So like Ian McKellen as Gandalf, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I think you can throw Gal up there as Wonder Woman. I have not seen Harley Quinn in The Birds of Prey, but a lot of people say that about Margot Robbie. We'll see when I get there. But yeah, I think she's definitely the clear winner. So
100%.
Modified question. Favorite scene besides the No Man's Land?
Favorite scene beside No Man's Land?
Mm-hmm.
I know I kind of spoiled mine earlier, but I think I'm going to have to go with the campfire scene. Chief Campfire.
Chief Campfire.
I like the... he took our land from, what happened to your people? He took our land from them, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a great understated, yet it speaks so powerful about, race relations, classes, society. It's so cool. And to see that in a superhero movie, like a comic book summer blockbuster, it's like, fuck yeah. Mm-hmm. Love that shit.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I'm going to go with... I like the scene a lot after she kills Ludendorff and she's talking to Steve.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with that one. Quickly followed by the alleyway fight with the Germans. I think
the Superman 78 montage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit right.
All right, so then this goes to our ratings on the 20-point scale.
Okay. So let's remind all of our viewers. Sorry.
Are you okay?
So Man of Steel was the first movie that we watched. John gave it a 6.5 and I gave it a 7. Mm-hmm. Man of Steel.
You just said that. Batman v Superman.
I said Batman v Superman, but then now I'm saying... Oh, shit. Sorry. Man of Steel. John gave it a 6.5 and I gave it a 7.
You already said that.
Shut the fuck up.
Alright, Batman v Superman.
Batman v Superman. Did I not write this down?
I gave it a 5.
You gave it a 5?
And so did you.
Okay, so we both gave it a 5.
20 is terrible.
Suicide Squad. John gave it a 3.
Uh-huh.
I gave it a 3.5.
Yep. What'd you give Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman.
You have to go first.
This is tricky.
You have to go first.
This might give away my thoughts on when we start to get to the rankings, and this might be some contention.
I'm ready. I'm gonna duke it out.
Oh boy.
The suspense is killing me.
I would give this movie a 7.
Okay.
I also gave a 7 to Man of Steel.
Yes, you did. That means it's a tie.
I think
in your opinion.
I think Man of Steel is a more entertaining movie than Wonder Woman.
Really?
I love a lot of what Wonder Woman represents.
Okay.
What I don't love is a lot of the editing and final product of Wonder Woman. I think Man of Steel is an engaging and enjoyable science fiction superhero film from beginning to end with awesome action, and an awesome lead and a great supporting cast. I think Man of Steel, while it has its problems, I think Man of Steel is... I don't even know how to say this in the right sentence. I think just going on what I would like to watch again, if I was forced to watch any of these movies and I had to say which one I would want to rewatch right now. And again, I'm biased because Man of Steel is a moment for me, pop culture wise. Like, I was so excited to see Superman on the big screen and like in a different sort of light. And I saw that movie 4 or 5 times in the theater. So it's similar to you with Wonder Woman, where it's like, I really wanted to see this hero. You're smirking at me in a way that I just can't deal with right now.
It's just funny.
And I think that, I know we're gonna disagree. There's just no way around it.
Yeah, but the point of this pod is we have to establish Radiovania's right.
I know.
Which means we're going to have to fight.
I
so
know.
You better get ready.
I know I'm ready.
Yeah. I don't think you are.
I'm ready. SpongeBob.
Yes.
So, Man of Steel to me, just front to back, is a more complete movie. I think that Wonder Woman has excellent elements. It has a so strong first half. But I think to me it just stumbles to the end, where there's some great stuff between Gal and Chris Pine, and there's some cool stuff with the end, especially the final monologue, which you just read in full, where it's like a great message. But a lot of what I'm seeing, I'm not very interested in. I like what she represents, but I don't exactly like what is being edited and put in the final cut. For me, Man of Steel is like a superhero epic from beginning to end. The villain, the stakes of the movie, the world surrounding it, the supporting actors, everything around it is just so much more. It feels like like if you looked at these movies side by side, it's like one feels like a more of an indie film and one feels like a grand sci-fi epic. And I get that.
It's just the difference between the two characters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I get that, I don't know. Wonder Woman is here's a factoid.
Okay.
Wonder Woman is the only movie in the DCEU to score a 90% or higher critic recommendation on Rotten Tomatoes. 449 reviews, 129,000 audience reviews, and 87%. So, I don't have much more to my argument there. We can talk more about it as you explain yours, but just based on enjoyment of the entire product from front to back, personally, as much as I love what she represents, Wonder Woman on her own, without this movie, represents something so special in cinema and film. And Wonder Woman as Gal Gadot and that performance will be remembered for a long time.
Yes.
But as a movie, as a full-fledged feature film from front to back, all things considered, looking at it from a critical eye and not a fan eye, I cannot see putting this movie anywhere above Man of Steel.
So what is Man of Steel's Rotten Tomato score again?
I will look it up.
Yeah.
If you can find time to vamp.
I can vamp. Blue, 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 blue.
Great vamping.
Thank you.
Man of Steel has a 56% critic recommendation, but a 75% audience recommendation.
And Wonder Woman's is a
93% critical, 87% audience.
Okay, so audiences like both. Critics appreciate Wonder Woman more, probably because of the messages that they deliver. Critics seem to eat that stuff up. So I gave Wonder Woman a 7.5, 7.5, which puts it a whole 1 point higher than what I rated Man of Steel, which I gave a 6.5. The same arguments that you have for the third act of Wonder Woman is how I feel about the third act of Man of Steel.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about this on Man of Steel, so we don't need to rehash it because we already talked about how I don't like that third act. It's unnecessarily destructive. The good part about it is the conversations that Superman and Zod have but at the stakes that they set up, I just don't think are as impactful for me.
I don't get that, man, because it's like you get this. The whole argument at the end of Man of Steel is like, yeah, there is a lot of destruction, but the whole thing is that it's the last of the Kryptonian kinds versus each other, and that's the whole powerfulness against
These are the last of the two gods.
Exactly.
It's the same thing in Wonder Woman.
No.
They're the last two gods.
But
It's
then
the
there's
same
all these
thing.
other Themyscira out there, and there's all these.
They're
people.
not gods, though. We already.
But
talked
the
about
movie sets it up as if they have the same power.
the Amazons and the gods don't have the same power. They're created by the gods.
I don't
They're
know.
more powerful than humans. But she's the god killer. She's the only other person capable of destroying a
Yeah,
god.
but the thing is that even without that, though, she has this disdain and this hate for Ares, and she just blindly hates him. But at the same time, Henry Cavill's Superman and Zod have this familial, interconnected bloodline where it's like, I understand that you are an evil hate monger and you're trying to like do this thing and destroy a planet, but it's like we are also the same species. We're the same people. We have a history together. That conflict is so much more engaging to me than I'm Wonder Woman. I'm a source of all good and I'm going to defeat the evil. Oh, he's evil. I'm going to defeat him. And to me, that's why Man of Steel has so much of a more impactful ending. Like the scene of Superman sacrificing all morals to kill this guy that he knows is the last of the bloodline, just because he knows that he's not going to do anything but evil, is so much more impactful to me than Wonder Woman taking down CG Lupin in armor. Mm-hmm. To me.
Yeah. That's where we disagree. It's this. I have the same exact arguments for the other side of the coin.
So what do we do?
Well, technically, if we had to do it based on fairness, we would have to take the averages of our score. So, a 7 and a 7.5 is higher than a 7 and a 6.5. So that would put Wonder Woman narrowly above Man of Steel in the joint Radiovania scale.
Explain that again, because I'm a little drunk.
Okay, yeah. So, get a calculator out. You got your phone? Do you understand what I...
Scale. Yeah, I do. But
Thank you.
just fucking get your numbers straight.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be so hard for poor Zach.
She can't hear.
So-
no one can hear.
7 plus 7.5. Are you adding this up? Or
No.
you want me to do it? I got you. Okay. Math time. 7.5 plus 7 is equal to 14.5 divided by 2 is equal to a grand total of 7.25. And 6.5 plus 7 is equal to 13.5 divided by 2, which is a grand total of 6.75. So if we take the averages of our scores, the average of our combined Wonder Woman score is higher than the average of our Man of Steel score by a Radiovania half point on the 20-point scale. So
This would work much better if we had a third person that we could do like majority vote.
that's not the point of the pod, though. We're supposed to agree on a ranking. Are you going to not budge on your Man of Steel takes for the rest of the pod?
But here's the thing: is that like
Because there are two movies that I think are better than Man of Steel. And this is one of them.
what are you serious? You think Shazam and Aquaman are better than Man
No,
of
I
Steel?
said this is one of them. I don't want to spoil it because we have more episodes to go.
Here's the thing: is that like I think Man of Steel is such a better movie than most of the DCEU.
Okay.
I think there's only one movie that does it better.
Okay. Interesting.
I think Wonder Woman is a fantastic moment, but as a movie,
I don't think anyone talks about Man of Steel in the same reverence that they talk about Wonder Woman.
well, they
In terms
should
of
go
the-
back and rewatch
In
it.
terms of the public eye, I'm being honest.
No, I totally get the
And
public
one of them
eye
got a
thing.
sequel and the other hasn't. Technically, like a true sequel.
That's true, but they've all deciding who has a sequel and who doesn't is a completely moot point because DC and Warner Brothers doesn't know how to fucking manage their properties. And they're also we didn't bring it up at the top of the show, but there's an article this week from Hollywood Reporter that DC has requested Henry Cavill to show up in other DC properties going forward as the Nick Fury. They're trying to make him be more of like the binding tissue
of the Justice League.
for all DCEU movies going forward.
Okay.
and then they're going to bring him in at an undisclosed date to be a more central role.
Okay.
But Henry,
I want him to come back. I like him as Superman.
I do too. I think he's the best part of the DCEU. I think Henry Cavill as Superman is the best part of the entire universe. Is like he's a great Superman, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's an argument between Wonder Woman as a message or Man of Steel as a movie.
I think Wonder Woman's a great movie.
I disagree. Like I think
you don't think it's a great movie. You've been saying all pod that you thought it was a great movie. Though.
I think it's a fun movie. I think Wonder Woman has a lot of fun stuff and then some great moments where there's a great message and a great stuff to take away. Man of Steel from front to back has excellent build-up, character development, excellent, even if it's overstuffed, it has excellent action. And I don't know. I mean, I at the end of the day, like you said, the review score thing, it's going to barrel down to Wonder Woman being top of the pack, but it's like, I'm just trying to get my argument out there. Is that I don't find, and you've seen it 5 times, so maybe if after the 5th or 6th time I'd find something better out of Wonder Woman, but like I just have more enjoyment watching that first episode that we did when we watched Man of Steel. I was like, man, I fucking forgot how cool this was. What a great jump start to this universe and how fucked it gets in the later realm.
A great jump start is a little bit of an over appreciation because it failed on impact afterwards.
Based on what?
I mean, it's just it's hard to set up a universe when the first movie of your universe you destroy the entire city of Metropolis. I'm sorry, it is.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was. I didn't understand people's like criticism of the destruction because as long as you go forward with that, it could have been cool. I'm trying to block out every other movie. I'm trying to think of the movie as its own movie. Batman v Superman addresses that in the very beginning, and it's like, well, you could have done more with that. But it's still like, if you think about that movie and the ending, it's like, that's devastation. That's kind of a cool way to introduce Superman to this world, where he's an alien that's incredibly destructive. What do you do with that? And turns out Batman v Superman didn't do much with it. No. But like, I like where it starts. I think the genesis of this whole thing is great. And again, like, I don't mean to like argue minutia as well, but like, Man of Steel has such a better soundtrack. I think the score is ridiculous. The visual effects are 10,000 times better than anything in Wonder Woman. It just looks more visually appealing. And I also think the cast is better. Like, I like Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, but it's like, you have Diane Lane, you have Kurt Russell, you have fucking...
Kurt Russell's not in it.
Not Kurt Russell, sorry.
Yeah.
Who am I thinking of?
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
And Field of Dreams.
Right.
And all these people, and it's like, I don't know. Again, we could argue this forever, and we need to end this podcast at some point.
Yeah, I guess the problem that I have with that still is the same problem that I had when we talked about Man of Steel, is that I do feel like they flesh out Zod and his supporting cast more than they focus on him. And then they don't do more fleshing him out in Batman v Superman. Whereas this movie is like solely focused on like her and her relationship with Steve Trevor. I just feel like we get more time with the actual hero of the story. And it's just, I don't know, I feel like Superman is great. Henry Cavill is great as playing Superman. But what Zack Snyder gives him to do in Man of Steel and BVS is like, this is the mopey version of Superman. Like, this is a darker take, which, like, it works for some people. It does. But I don't feel like, I mean, there's a lot of that chunk of the beginning of Man of Steel where he doesn't really, like, it's just hard to get invested with him because he's not interacting with people until he gets, like, to the ship. It's a lot of, like, flashback based, which I think those were all the best parts, like we talked about earlier. I think they're two very different movies until they get to the third act, and then it's kind of a similar setup where it's pitting equals against each other with a disagreement that they have. So
yeah. So I don't know. I think this is it's an interesting, and this is the one where I was like, from the beginning, I was like, I know John likes this movie. I know this is going to be contentious. Mm-hmm. So I think that, just based on your algorithm alone and doing the thing, it goes number 1, Wonder Woman, number 2, Man of Steel,
yeah,
number 3, Batman v Superman, and number 4, Suicide Squad.
Right. I think we've given all of them fair ratings. None of them have cracked an 8. I don't know if any of them will by the end of the run of this. We'll have to see. But I think a 7.5 is a fair rating on my end for this movie. For all the problems that we both agreed on with the third act. And everything there.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is your weekly reminder that these are not the movies that I think they should have made. I think that they could have taken a very different direction with these, and we wouldn't have been doing a retrospective on these because they're so divisive. But I don't know, man. I'll stand by it. Like, I'll stand by it, and obviously, you know, given the ratings that we have now with Wonder Woman being the top, I'm going to have some serious questions going forward because, again, we don't want to spoil too much about our future thoughts. I think Shazam is a better movie than Man of Steel. So I think probably Shazam is a better movie than Wonder Woman. And so it's like, but it's
I
like,
haven't watched Shazam since the theater, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, but it's like, and Birds of Prey, it's like, there's a lot of great stuff that's coming up, and we only have one more shit pile to get through. We have Justice League, which is our next episode, which is like half of that movie is just going to be us discussing like all of the drama and how we got here. But it's like, if you know, I'm not upset that Wonder Woman is now the number 1 movie on our list, on the Radiovania list, because it is a great movie. I don't love it as much as Man of Steel, but I do respect what it has to say. And I think that alone...
And I think that's why, when you mentioned earlier that we're trying to look at it from a critical point of view, I think that's where it's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. The critic again. We could deep dive on this, but it's like the fan in me wants to say like, oh, don't worry about the critical stuff, like the editing and the bad CG and the ending and everything. It's like worry about the message. That to me is the fan thing. The critical thing would be like, this movie falls apart in the third act and there's no real resolution. And the last shot of her zipping around Paris and she gets on there, it's like the worst CG I've ever seen. It's like, that's to me is the critical eye where it's like, this movie just doesn't work. But I think it's a mixture of the two where you have to be like, it does so much that's important that you're able to look past the stuff that it falters on. And that to me is why I am not going to go to bed upset that Wonder Woman is number 1 on our DCEU.
I would hope not, because we sat here for like 3 hours. So,
2 hours and 52 minutes.
Right.
So,
apt.
So John, without further ado, let's close this sucker out, huh?
All right.
I just want to give you a hand hug. Do you love me?
Do you love me?
Do you appreciate my opinions on films? Because I appreciate yours.
I appreciate them. I think.
If you like this episode, you guys can listen more at radiovania.com, or you can go to radiovaniashow@gmail.com to send your questions, comments, and concerns. You can also search podcast services around the world for Radiovania and check out the DCEU in review series, which we are now on episode 4, which is concluded.
Are we halfway done? I think we are.
Yeah, I guess there are 8 films. Yeah.
Let's see. We're halfway done.
Look at that.
How about that?
Thank you guys for listening. It's been a pleasure hanging with you.
Pleasure.
And until next time, John, do you have a quote from Wonder Woman you want to leave us on?
It's hydrogen. It's flammable. That's all.